Yeah. But you're working on Wednesday. So basically, you're working all week, huh?
All week long.
Yeah.
How many hours you think I should get? Like a cool close to 67?
2 hours overtime, that's like what? That's like, that's like 6 or 17 hours.
Mm.
48. 56 hours together. All, it's over. That's 56 hours.
56.
Yeah.
That's like, what's that, like 2 days of overtime?
Yeah.
Yeah, we probably need more. Probably try to get some more. I know Jerry said he's gonna put in my hours for tomorrow. I did 16 yesterday.
Oh, you go 16 minutes and that's gonna
Hmm.
So I'm gonna be like 3 days.
I'm trying to at least get one more day too, so it could be four. That way, what is it like? What's 4 extra days plus the 40 hours?
Well, after that, it's gonna be like, something.
Were you by the admin office?
I like to.
Are you by the admin office?
Like 32,
Do me a favor, yeah.
32 hours over.
72,
Yeah, 72 hours.
72 hours.
That's a good check, too.
It's going all towards rent.
They'll be taking that lot, though.
Yeah, that rent.
I'm thinking about going to 87 for the rest of the year.
Man, the more you make, the more they take.
Right, yeah, boy.
What's up, man? What's up? What's up? Ja, ja, ja. Yo, nasi, nasi, nasi. What's up? What's up?
Christine, what was the next one that you do between?
What's up? What's up? What's up?
230.
Ja, 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 ja.
Number 230.
Where's everybody from? Where's everybody from? Where's everybody from?
5061.
Yeah, it is. It's a badge.
In Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Officer. Officer reporting for duty. Who? Me? What? Police. Damn, bros, I ain't police. Appreciate it. Toy. Nigga toy. Crazy. If anybody has content, drop your name. Let's do a content review. Q&A. Shout out to Soren. Watch your mouth, boy, before you get banned. As we're studying. What's up, Natalie? What's up? What's up? What's up? Blood gang. Nah, bro. No gang banging. Where's everybody from? Tap in, tap in. Tap in. Actually, let me show you something. Hey, gang, you trying to be funny? Viral taps? This don't say nothing like that. Practice exam property ownership. I'm doing real estate work while I'm doing my work.
Go ahead.
It hit different. New York,
Yeah, it should be a
Maryland,
picture of the white.
Trump,
Let me print it again.
or
Okay.
come on, Trump, Trump. You feel me? Gotta stay tapped in, man. I ain't the type. This a laid back security job. This ain't that. Blinker time. What you mean? What you mean blinker time, bro? Blinkers? Wax? Oh no. Are you? I don't even know what that means. If somebody know what UDG is talking about, let me know. Fish, Elohim. I like that. Tato pit ground. All right, so I'm from Vegas, so you believe in Yahweh with that chain. I mean, that's that's one of the Lord's names. This dude always finding his way on my stream, bro. This is ridiculous, bro. SRI, Lanka. Who is that? Lanka. Okay, so if anybody has content, drop it down below. If you want me to check out your channel that got views on it, subscribers, anything, say me, drop comments down below. Anunnaki or I believe that the Anunnaki is real or was, but, or Yahuwah. Team Yahuwah, man, Team Yahuwah. Country, it's a country, okay. Where's this country located? Harris or Trump? Trump. No, you funny, bro. You're funny. Stop from drugs. It's bad for you. Sober mind is the best mind. Yes, sir. South Asia. How is South Asia? She calling me? I don't think so. I'm going live on one phone, listening to beats on the other one. I think you're trying to be funny, but it's not working, buddy. It's not working. Pretty boring. Answer some questions like, where are you from? Where are you from? Ja. Where are you from? Where is the rest of these people from? The 5 people. Anybody got YouTube content that we could review? We're listening to Soren. Sri Lanka. Okay. That's what's up. I might need to do a review on that place. I'm gonna look into that place. Appreciate that. I'm from, okay. I don't know what that means. Indigo Joker. All right, bro. We finna check out your content. You got 19K on TikTok. You know, go check me out. I'll check you out on YouTube. I don't have TikTok. Kings of the world. Nah, I doubt that. Kings of the world aren't human. That's how I feel. Indigo Joker. Alright guys, so we finna check out Indigo's Joker's channel. If it's good enough, I'll subscribe. Make sure I like, comment, subscribe. Indigo Joker.
my second ever video ever, and thank you all for. I got 2 subscribers. I'm so happy.
Let
My
me know if
goal
y'all can
next
see what the
is
black
at
device
least
is.
5. And
Looks blurry.
for my 2 subscriber special, I'm gonna play arcade, which I have never played before.
I'm already a Call of Duty
I
guy.
don't know what to
Go
expect.
ahead, drop you a like, man.
Yes, I'm level 100 and I haven't
Airline.
ever played it.
Oh, it's your name. I like your
Yeah,
name,
it's
bro.
kinda weird.
Like, comment, subscribe, y'all. What's up, Instant Goat? If you got any content, say me.
But yeah, I'm just
Or
like
drop your
super
name
grateful.
down below.
My channel
Who's next?
so far is doing good.
Viral Trap, if you're still in here, confirm so we
So
can look at your
wait,
content
I
next.
got mains. No, I main people. Now I main Twitch for attackers. And I main for defenders.
Are we down to
Muha,
copy again?
Natalie,
Not trust me, but I main
we don't know.
All of New Mexico is allocated.
Anything random, but it all helps.
Everyone
So
knows me as
appreciate you, man. Everybody like, comment, subscribe.
time to main her.
If y'all know what game this is, comment it.
By the way, this video is only going to be 15 minutes or shorter because it won't let me do
We only have
fire,
one more
sadly.
thing that needs to be taken care of,
But
and
yeah,
it's in door
it's
221.
fine, it's fine. It won't really matter to me.
Go to the corner. You've been a bad boy. Go in the corner or you're getting put in timeout.
I'm happy.
It looks like he's playing.
Arcade's not loading.
Rainbow Six? Oh, Rainbow Six, okay.
What's up, bro?
Okay. Okay, now I'm gonna watch this. I'm gonna see what's up with it. This video, 7 minutes long. I guess we could watch it together, why not?
How about doing?
Oh, we're in, guys. It's apparently deathmatch.
You're on a timer. Eliminate hostile.
Happy.
Enemies took the lead.
What's your job? Play my Twitch. Play my Twitch in May. Fine, love it. I spawned in with a dog plan. God, bro, my teammate scared me. I don't know what. I guess it's just a match. Basically, we just got kills. I hope.
Damn. Spawn trap.
Get more. That's the good part. Bad part is I don't know who to play.
He got spawn trap, that's crazy.
Perfect character. Amazing gun. I have black eyes for.
These people aren't playing, they spawn trapping and all that. I might have to check out Rainbow Six. Rainbow Six look a little fun, you know? Toodles, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Y'all, follow my Instagram.
Double kill.
For anybody else who has some content that they want me to review, let me know. Let me know. Let me know. Let me know. Bitcoin. Bitcoin's down. Oh man. How many people are invested in Bitcoin currently? How many of y'all got that Bitcoin? How many peeps? How many peeps? How many peeps?
You guys have some of these? Yeah.
A partition suit is used for which of the following to force a division? And with other owners are opposed. It is a legal action involving the courts. It is an expense, often satisfactory results. What's up, y'all? My job. The same place yours is. Which of the following is considered to be personal property? A deed of conveyance contains. What's up, bro? What's up? What's good with you, man? What's good? What's good? Where you from? Where you from? Bahamas? Nice. How is it in the Bahamas? Kimon World? What does that mean? Dreadful Nick, appreciate you, bro. Drop down where y'all from. If anybody got YouTube content, let me know. This week we're gonna be going live with random guests too, so make sure y'all subscribe for that so y'all can stay tuned, tap into that. We're going live with random guests. Put on your blick so I know you're going. Nah, I'm at work. Can't do that, buddy. What matters is as long as I know one, as long as I know I got one, as long as I know I got that blick, that's all that matters. When can a landlord evict a tenant or otherwise person if there's loud noises?
Jack, you guys have
As the defects occurring during
Jack, you guys have
the grantor
Jack,
of
go ahead.
a special warranty deed
I'll listen to people. It's not going to take me more than 2 seconds
does
each
not
person,
provide
okay?
a warranty
So
or
you don't have to
guarantee
stop them or anything like that. It'll only take
clear
2 seconds.
title
I'll make sure they're back out there.
Copy.
What's going on with everybody? What's going on? What's going on?
Advanced Conqueror's Haki, the apex of power wielded only by a handful of the very strongest. It's in the middle of his fight against Kaido that Luffy awakens this power to shoot him up amongst the strongest in the world. Fast forward to a flashback and a revelation, and Zoro awakens as the King of Hell, wielding the same power as his captain. Which would surely make them equal, right? No. But if they aren't, how close are they really? That is the question we'll be trying to answer today in this video. Now, a quick disclaimer before we start. This is not going to be your standard versus battle, but rather, it's asking what is the weakest version of Luffy that Zoro could take on in a fight. So the options would either be base, gear 2, gear 3, gear 4, or gear 5. In a normal battle scenario, Luffy would probably just go gear 5 regardless of whether he really needs it to win, especially against someone as strong as Zoro. Now, I won't be trying to mix and match gears with Haki either, so no, Zoro can be a gear 2 Luffy that doesn't use Future Sight, but does use Rio, but doesn't use Advanced Conqueror's Haki, or something like that, because, truthfully, I am not doing all that. So bear in mind, Luffy, no matter which version I'm talking about, has all Hakis available to him. And with all that out of the way, I think it's finally time we actually get into the main shit. So, without further ado, let's get into how close Zoro really is compared to
What's going
Luffy.
on? Y'all spam comments down below.
Now, to gauge how strong either Zoro or Luffy are, we must first tackle their strength prior to their aforementioned Conqueror's Haki buffs. Why? Because the level of a person's Conqueror's Haki is in fact dependent on the user's strength, which would mean it also holds true for advanced Conqueror's Haki. Now, looking back on the fight at the rooftop, so before their Conqueror's Haki buffs, I noticed a surprisingly close performance between Luffy and Zoro on my reread. Now, I'm going to split Rooftop Zoro into 3 versions, which have varying levels of power. The first one, this is Zoro initially at the start of the chapter of 1001, where he lands a Purgatory Onigiri but cannot cut a base Kaido, but he does plan on unleashing Enma a bit more. He eventually does so, and this is the version we will be comparing to the post-Rio training Gear 4 Luffy, because the Zoro after this wouldn't actually be pre-advanced Conqueror's Haki, but we'll get into that soon enough. The second version of Zoro then makes Big Mom caution Kaido about the power of his Flying Dragon Blaze, and in the anime at least makes him dodge, which is quite a crazy feat considering Kaido doesn't really go out of his way to dodge any attacks that he deems too weak, just like Gear 4 Luffy in Act 1, and Luffy himself makes a note of this in a later chapter. The same Zoro then manages to cut Kaido's scales, which Gear 4 Luffy previously had trouble getting through in Act 1. And whilst the third main feat of Zoro would be him momentarily blocking Kaido and Big Mom's combined attack in Ocean Sovereignty. Very, very impressive, but it leads to him having 20 to 30 because of it, and he is now severely weakened. I'd say when we get to the third version of Zoro, and that is the Rooftop Zoro, which manages to permanently scar Kaido after beating him in a clash and blitzing past him. It's his biggest feat on the rooftop, but as I was alluding to before, this Zoro is already using the buff given by Advanced Conqueror's Haki. I understand this point is a bit contentious amongst some fans, so I'll be dedicating this next section just to proving why this Zoro is in fact using Advanced Conqueror's Haki. Firstly, Zoro used Ashura while letting Enma take all of his Haki, as seen with him saying that Ashura would be the limit of his ability, and with Enma surging with Haki. That should ring a bell because what else works by letting Enma take all of your Haki? It's Zoro's King of Hell mode. In the same way Zoro achieves Advanced Conqueror's Haki in King of Hell by letting Enma take his Haki constantly and stabilizing it, Zoro achieves the same result by letting Enma take all of his Haki in Ashura. Secondly, Kaido's scar is permanent. The only person we've seen achieve that is none other than Kozuki Oden, who at the time most likely used Advanced Conqueror's Haki on Kaido. Note that the 4 Akazaya samurai who performed the Paradise Totsuka with Internal Destruction could not scar Kaido permanently, and Luffy, even himself, calls his Internal Destruction in Gear 4 too shallow, meaning that Zoro had to have used something beyond both those in order to scar Kaido permanently, as well as Oden, which has to be Advanced Conqueror's Haki. And finally, let me take you back to Luffy versus Kaido in Act 1, where Luffy performs a Kong Organ on Kaido and then gets decimated after like 2 pages. If you remember, you'll know Kaido didn't comment on Luffy being a Conqueror's Haki user until after he was knocked out and knocked out the beast pirates that were trying to arrest him. It's only then that Kaido realizes that Luffy was a Conqueror's Haki user all along, meaning he couldn't discern it when he was hit by the Kong Organ the first time by Luffy, because it wasn't advanced. So when Kaido is finally able to tell that Zoro does have Conqueror's Haki, it means that he had to be using the advanced version, especially since Zoro had already cut Kaido with his Tatsumaki, and Kaido wasn't able to discern that Zoro had Conqueror's Haki then either. Bit of a tangent there, but I did feel the need to clarify that. So let's tread back to the second version of Zoro that I discussed and compare him to the Luffy prior to his Conqueror's Haki buffs. So who's stronger? Well, combined with the fact that Luffy should be stronger than his subordinate at any given time, the Gear 4 Gatling-gun is the superior showing compared to Zoro's Tatsumaki or Flying Dragon Blaze. It put Dragon 4 Kaido down for a prolonged period of time, and it's just a lot of emphasis on this moment by Oda by making it a couple of panels long, as well as Big Mom's overall reaction and her coaching quietly demonstration. To be fair to Zoro though, he also got Big Mom to make quite a few reaction panels himself, with, like I said, the Flying Dragon Blaze, and then also when he actually cut Kaido's scales, not just the bit that's in front of his dragon body, like what the Akazaya Samurai did. So like I said before, quite close in showing, but I am still giving it to Luffy for the reasons above. So, pre-advanced Conqueror's Haki Luffy is stronger than a pre-advanced Conqueror's Haki Zoro, and your Conqueror's Haki is proportional to the user's strength, like I said before, meaning that the buff Luffy gets from unlocking advanced Conqueror's Haki is bigger than the buff Zoro gets from unlocking advanced Conqueror's Haki. To give that point a more numerical perspective, let's say Luffy before his Conqueror's Haki buff was a 10 in strength and Zoro a 9. Then when Luffy gets his advanced Conqueror's Haki buff, he'd get a +5 in points, whereas Zoro would only get 4, since the buff is relative to their strength. And therefore, you'd also find that the gap between them would increase as well. Now, what we can gather from that is that current Zoro therefore cannot beat and is hard capped at current Gear 4 Luffy with all of his Hakis, because prior to Advanced Conqueror's Haki, Gear 4 Luffy was already stronger than Zoro, and now we can finally shift the question to whether Gear 3, Gear 2, or base Luffy can be beaten by Zoro. Okay, then it's very simple. Base Luffy put Kaido on his back when Zoro couldn't, both with Advanced Conqueror's Haki, so Luffy cooks him. But it's not that simple. For one, there's two things working against Zoro in his moment against Kaido. The first being that he's got 20 to 30 broken bones, and second, his level of Advanced Conqueror's Haki was not the same as it is right now. Currently, when he does use Advanced Conqueror's Haki in King of Hell specifically, you can actually see the lightning coming off his swords, implying that there's a different level of Advanced Conqueror's Haki achieved with King of Hell as opposed to the one in Ashura. However, Luffy's level of Advanced Conqueror's Haki was too not the same as it is now. Kaido, after beating Luffy after his initial Conqueror's Haki buff, calls his use of Conqueror's Haki infusion crude and clumsy. The manga actually off-screens the fight, so we're just gonna have to use Toei here to help us out a bit. And they've only got him using Gear 3 for 1 Red Rock and just kept Luffy in base the whole time essentially, and it gets Kaido slightly out of breath. It's then this /Gear 3 using Luffy that then comes back against Kaido and truly goes toe-to-toe with him after adding a lot more finesse to his Advanced Conqueror's Haki, and even forces Kaido to make him strengthen his Haki. And so if you know that Zoro's capped at Gear 4 Luffy, the question now essentially becomes, how does Zoro stack up against this base /Gear 3 using Luffy that fights Kaido and even manages to split the sky with him? Look, I'm going to set a scale for you which I have spent like the past 5 days crafting, okay? And there are 2 characters which I just cannot decide where I'm going to be putting. So I am in fact letting you, the viewer, decide on where they go. But I am giving you parameters because they can't just go anywhere. And it will be those 2 placements that basically decide what version of Luffy Zoro can beat, if any. The 2 characters I'm talking about are King and King of Hell Zoro. Hopefully you already understand that Zoro is stronger than King.
Going in the cafeteria real quick.
Now I established before your rooftop Luffy is stronger than rooftop Zoro. But
Sanitation, aisle 42, rest
there.
on the floor. Once again, sanitation, we got a
This
red
one may be
bill
controversial,
on
but
the
I've
floor.
got Yamato and Ashura Zoro. However, this Ashura Zoro doesn't have 20 to 30 broken bones and is fully healed. Otherwise, Yamato would absolutely decimate him right after. Now I've got them positioned like this only because we see this Zoro clash with hybrid Kaido, and then Kaido is ultimately.
What's up, guys? For the people who are here, where you from? Where you from? Like, comment, subscribe.
Push Kaido too much and can't really get the edge on him like Zoro did. You could have them interchanged, however, especially if you think that Yamato surpasses Zoro's speed by matching.
Time to get some work snacks. Feel me?
Speaking of fighting hybrid Kaido, though, we haven't seen him give real Luffy fighting him in any capacity other than when Kaido was in base or full Dragon form. But I'm still gonna have him below the advanced Conqueror's Haki uses, especially since he calls his own Rio on its own too shallow, and then outshines his previous G4 self in base, making me put a lot of stock
Got the
in
new
the
yours.
advanced Conqueror's Haki buff. However, it is at Ashura Zoro where I have the
My
King.
cheese.
It's valid to have him anywhere below that point, but I'm certain he isn't stronger than Ashura Zoro because, again, the buff from advanced Conqueror's Haki is massive. And I imagine it isn't too far off his King of Hell mode either, since, like I said before, they work the exact same. As the base of chapter 1026, the King of Zoro. Now Zoro could not put Kaido in his bag. Just to do so in just 2 punches. I imagine Oda made Zoro say that line to highlight the difference in power between the two. Skip forward 3 chapters and this Luffy, however, gets sent crashing down into the sea, but not after leaving Kaido a bit asthmatic, which is a better result compared to what Yamato achieved against him, making this Luffy stronger than both Ashura Zoro and Yamato. And finally, we have the current base Luffy slash K3 Luffy that can split the sky with Kaido and falls into Amel Self.
Yo,
And that has
where
added
everybody
finesse to
What
his
everybody
advanced
doing?
Conqueror's Haki. King of El Zoro has to be stronger than the Ashura one for obvious reasons. And the question now becomes, where does this King of Hell Zoro lie in comparison to the 2 Luffys I just named? Well, to be honest, I don't think he's even touching the current base Luffy. I'm sorry. I have current Zoro at full strength relative to base Luffy from chapter 10,010. Zoro in King of Hell has managed to stabilize his Haki in King of Hell better than this Luffy, I figure. But the power of Luffy's internal destruction makes up for any lack of finesse or stability, and if not, probably goes a bit beyond that. That is my final answer. Zoro could technically be current Gear 3 and 4 Luffy. For me personally, I really can't imagine that scenario. I just don't think he's reached the level where he can split the sky. That's synonymous with the Emperors of the Sea, and instead lies in the tier below with Yamato, Greenwood, Fujitora, etc. Somewhere where most admirals lie. Like I said, it basically depends on where you have King on the scale, to be honest. If you're going above Yamato, for example, King of Hell Zoro would scale a lot higher than I have him, and maybe he gets up to current base Luffy. However, it comes down to what you think Oda's intentions are, portrayal if you will, because sometimes the feats just aren't there for you to analyze, and of course, vibes as well. At the end of the day, let's keep it real. Okay, so little section at the end of the video here I just wanted to discuss. So they just released a new Vivre card which has Zoro on it, okay? And in the Vivre card, they've got him as having confirmed Haki and observed. Okay, if you didn't know. Okay. Vivre cards, by the way, if you didn't know, they're basically just like extra, they're like data books kind of, that give a little bit of information about, you know, the characters and stuff. Sometimes used to push certain narratives, depending on if they support them or not. You know, it's just a data book essentially. Okay, and they've got Zoro as a confirmed armament user and observation user, but they don't have him confirmed as a Conqueror's Haki user, and it's
Conqueror's
got
Haki
people kind of
Zoro.
riled up. It's got some people saying, "Oh, he doesn't have Conqueror's Haki," you know, something like that. But I just
Where
wanted to
everybody
give
from?
my
Drop
take
it down
on
below.
since I've been seeing a lot of discussion around it.
Yes, sir.
And so, I quote this tweet. I
We
said,
got the nuance.
They're gonna cook you, but Zoro not knowing he's using advanced Conqueror's Haki makes sense. It also depends on how you interpret his answer to King's question. Zoro replying with what implies King's question came out of nowhere to him, even though he just used advanced Conqueror's Haki to knock out some beast pirates. It should be obvious to Zoro that King was talking about his advanced Conqueror's Haki use, but Zoro interprets it as his goal to become the world's greatest swordsman instead, which still makes sense as an answer, but I don't think Zoro's really comprehending what King is asking. So you intend to be a king then is also a really big question and leaves more to interpretation compared to don't tell me you can use Conqueror's Haki, which was asked by Kaido over here. So that's basically my thoughts in like 3 little tweets. Basically, what I'm saying is I don't think Zoro knows that he's using advanced Conqueror's Haki and therefore he isn't a user of it, essentially because he doesn't know what he's doing, which I think makes sense, right? I think that's what was being applied in this tweet, but essentially, yeah. So if we look at what Kaido asked here, he basically asks in this panel, do you have Conqueror's Haki or not? And Zoro replies, I don't know what you're talking about. And then we skip forward a bit, and King asks, so you intend to be a king then, which is a lot more vague. It just leaves a lot more room for interpretation than, straight up, do you have Conqueror's Haki, yes or no? So then Zoro replies with what? And then he doesn't relate this question with Conqueror's Haki, but instead relates it to his goal of world's greatest swordsman, right? That's what I gather from this. It's not that I think this question was purposely vague so that Zoro could, draw out his own meaning rather than just a straight up, do you have Conqueror's Haki, yes or no? This question is just a lot more vague than that, which is essentially that's basically what I gather. Really, that's my take on it. Again, I don't know, relating back to like how it puts him like next to Luffy, or how it puts him in comparison to Luffy. I think compared to when Luffy uses advanced Conqueror's Haki, Zoro has to put far less of a conscious effort to cope whatever attack he's doing in Conqueror's Haki, because unlike with Luffy, Zoro has Enma, which passively takes away the Haki from him, okay?
Notice.
And in Zoro's quest to stabilize his own Haki, he lets Enma draw out essentially all of it without holding back. Essentially, he lets Enma take all of his Haki, which would include Conqueror's Haki if the user has that. So I'm saying that, although Zoro can use advanced Conqueror's Haki, it's far less of a conscious effort in comparison to Luffy, where he actually has to cope his punches in advanced Conqueror's Haki.
Where you from?
And there's even confirmation from Luffy himself. I don't have it pulled up right now, but he does ask Kaido, so you can cope your attacks in Conqueror's Haki, essentially. So that's confirmation right there that Luffy does know exactly what he's doing. But unlike with Zoro, we don't really have that confirmation that's as concrete as like with Luffy. So that's basically what I was trying to say here.
Nevada.
And that
You do content?
to me, gives a lot of opportunity for buffs for Zoro when he does eventually, or if he does. Let me say if, because I don't know if this is true or not. This is just all my theory, by the way. This is just all conjecture. But if Zoro doesn't know what he's doing, it does leave the room for buffs if he does actually know what he's doing in King of Hell, which is coat his swords.
10 out of 10.
Advanced Conqueror's Haki. I don't know how
Typical
is going to be
American
done,
junk food.
but I'm just saying the opportunity is there. Okay, and then I think it's also like a difference in portrayal, right? Luffy knows exactly what he's doing with advanced conqueror's haki, but Zoro seemingly doesn't, meaning that Luffy's use of it is probably more advanced and has more finesse compared to Zoro's. That's what I gather. That might be what Oda's trying to say. So, you know, my take of him being below the current base Luffy
Nice, bro.
might have a lot more credence now, thanks, or according to this theory, if you follow it. But that's basically what I wanted to say. I just wanted to get my 2 cents on this little Beef card discussion during this break week. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Go follow me, go subscribe. Yeah, that's all for me. Bye-bye.
Dragon Ball Z.
Roronoa Zoro was born 21 years ago in
Roronoa.
and was a descendant of the Shimotsuki family from Wano, a legendary bloodline that dates back hundreds of years before the current story to Shimotsuki Ryuma, a man famous for slaying a dragon, who was so legendary he was called the Sword God. But Zoro had no idea about his heritage, and when he was young, his father and mother died, so he was orphaned, and lived by himself in Shimotsuki village, which was founded by his ancestors. But Zoro wasn't deterred. For whatever reason, he made it his mission to become stronger, so joined the local dojo to learn to be a swordsman. He learned very quickly, developing his own style by using 2 swords, which was unusual at the dojo, and through natural talent and hard work, became stronger than everyone, including all the adults, except for the sensei himself and his daughter Kuina. He made it his mission to defeat Kuina, and challenged her many times, every single day. In between training, he went to the edge of the island to see an old man that was always fishing. He told Zoro about the battle cry, Sunachi, that when said would give you courage, but Zoro said it sounded weird, so decided not to use it. But he asked the man if he was a samurai. Everyone at the dojo said he was, but he deflected the question, so Zoro ran away and continued training, but didn't go back to the dojo. The old man asked why, and he said he kept losing to Kuina and needed to train non-stop. So the old man gave him 2 of his swords. Zoro said he couldn't pay for them, but the man gave them to him for free, and told him that each blade is unique, and that a swordsman is one who tames the sword's wild nature and bends it to their will. The old man gave him pieces of advice like this occasionally, but Zoro was too young and inexperienced to fully understand them, but they stayed in the back of his mind for the future. Zoro continued challenging Kuina, racking up 2,000 fights with her, but wasn't able to win a single one.
One Piece.
She mocked him, calling him pathetic and weak, but this only motivated him further, declaring that he would sail the seas and become the greatest swordsman in the world. But Kuina was his first and greatest hurdle to achieving that goal, and after 2,000 matches, Zoro decided that something had to change, and he took drastic measures, challenging Kuina again. But this time, instead of using training swords, he demanded that they use real swords, and she agreed. But within one clash, it was over, and the result didn't change. He was frustrated to his core. No matter what he did, he couldn't beat her. But Kuina told him that she was the one that was frustrated. She said that in a few years, he would be stronger than her, because she was a girl and he was a boy. Her father told her that girls couldn't become master swordsmen, and he was lucky he was a boy. She started crying, saying she wanted to be the greatest swordsman too. But Zoro yelled at her, saying she was crying when she was the one that beat him, that it was his dream to beat her, and that one day he would, and that it would be because he worked hard, not because she got weaker. He was training so hard every day for this goal, and she was gonna make him look bad if she gave up for these reasons. He told her that they had to make a promise to each other, that someday, one of them would become the world's greatest swordsman. She started laughing, calling him an idiot, but she agreed. But the very next day, she died. Zoro screamed out in denial, seeing her dead body. She was his purpose, his goal, and that was ripped away from him after they only just came to understand each other. But now he was more resolved than ever to accomplish his dream. He asked the sensei for Kuina's sword, and he agreed to give it to him. He clutched it with tears in his eyes, and said he would keep the promise for the both of them, and become a swordsman so great that his name would even reach heaven, so Kuina could know he kept his promise. From this point on, he trained like a madman. His hunger and determination reached new heights. He trained like this for the next 11 years, until he turned 19, and thought he was now strong enough to challenge Jakul Mihawk, the current world's strongest swordsman, to take his title and prove to Kuina that he kept his promise. So, he set out to sea in search of Mihawk, but got lost and couldn't even find his way back to his village. So in order to make some money, started bounty hunting, and through easily defeating every pirate he came across, gained the reputation of the pirate hunter, and was feared all across the East Blue. Because of his newfound fame, he was offered a position in an organization called Baroque Works. He said he would only join if they made him the leader, and in response, the agent named Mr. Seven attacked him, and he killed him in self-defense. After this, Zoro landed in Shellstown, a marine-controlled area run by Captain Morgan. But while there, he saw someone harassing people with his wolf, and when the wolf attacked a little girl, he defended her. But it turned out that guy was the son of Captain Morgan, and he gave Zoro an ultimatum: be tied to a pole for 1 month, or he'd be blacklisted from being a bounty hunter. So Zoro, not wanting to lose his only form of income, agreed. He stood there, tied to a pole in the courtyard, in the sweltering hot sun, with nothing but his willpower and drive to live and become the greatest swordsman, keeping him going. After 9 excruciating days of this, someone peeked over a wall to look at him. Zoro smiled and asked him to come untie him. He was sick of this challenge and thought it wasn't worth it anymore, and he would just have to find another way to support himself. Someone else popped out and said not to do it, that Zoro would kill them if he was untied. But the other one replied that he couldn't kill them, he wouldn't let him, and this shocked Zoro. Ever since he set out to sea, and even before that, since Kuina's death, he was always the strongest. He always beat his competition easily, and he truly believed he was the strongest swordsman in the world. But this man, knowing full well who he was, didn't fear him at all, and even said he could beat him with full confidence. Before Zoro could think more about this, the little girl he saved before came running up to him. He tried to threaten her so she would get away from danger, but she ignored him and offered him some rice balls she'd made to thank him for saving her. He lied and said he wasn't hungry, then shouted at her, desperate to get her away from the marine base. But just what he feared happened. The guy from earlier, Helmeppo, returned and snatched a rice ball from the girl and took a bite, but spat it out, hating the taste. He threw the rice balls on the ground and started stomping on them, and the girl started crying, seeing her hard work being destroyed. This annoyed Helmeppo, and he ordered his guard to throw her over the wall without mercy. He then confirmed to Zoro that the deal was still on, saying he wouldn't break his word. But after he left, the guy from earlier came up to him, Monkey D. Luffy. He told Zoro he needed members for his pirate crew, and Zoro laughed at the idea, but he replied that being a pirate was his dream. But Zoro still poked fun at him and said he had his own plans, and reinvigorated, decided that he would stay the full month, and after that would be free to pursue his dreams, but had one request. He asked Luffy to pick up the rice balls smudged on the floor and feed them to him. And even though they tasted awful, he ate every last bit and told Luffy to tell the girl that they were delicious. After some time, Luffy returned, and Zoro again said he wouldn't join his crew, but Luffy said he'd untie him if he did. But Zoro didn't budge. He said he wouldn't become a pirate, but Luffy said that he was a bounty hunter that everyone called a demon. But Zoro replied that he didn't care what anyone thought, and would go for his dreams and follow his own code. Luffy paused for a while, but then said he made up his mind Zoro would join his crew, and this pissed him off on a whole new level. But Luffy ignored him, and asked where his swords were, and he said that Helmeppo took them. So Luffy got an idea. He'd steal them, and then Zoro would have no choice but to join his crew to get them back. And Luffy promptly ran off to do just that, despite Zoro's protests. But Zoro didn't expect much. He was heading for Captain Morgan's fortress as just one pirate, so he definitely didn't stand a chance. The other boy from earlier, COLEY, then came to free Zoro, and told him that Luffy's dream was to be the king of the pirates, which shocked Zoro to his core. But before COLEY could free him, he was shot from the top of the fortress. He survived, so Zoro told him to leave, but COLEY revealed that Helmeppo had lied to him. He planned to have him executed, and never intended to actually set him free, and that when Luffy heard about this, he punched Helmeppo, risking his own life. Zoro was stunned for a number of reasons, but before Zoro could really consider this, they were surrounded by Marines and confronted by Captain Morgan himself. He ordered his soldiers to take aim, and as Zoro looked down the barrels of the guns pointed at him, he said to himself that he couldn't die yet, remembering his promise to Kuina. But right then, Luffy got in the way of the bullets, saving his life. All the bullets bounced right off him. He was a Delphi user that had the Gum Gum fruit. Zoro asked just what he was, and he responded that he was the man that would become the king of the pirates. He showed Zoro that he kept his word and had gotten his swords back, but then said that he'd be labeled a traitor to the Marines if he joined them and fought back against them now. But Zoro said he wasn't willing to let himself be killed by them without a fight, so Luffy had himself a new pirate. Luffy started untying him, but the Marines charged forward to prevent this. They got closer and closer, but Luffy wasn't having success as Zoro was screaming at him at the top of his lungs, until finally he got one of his arms free and handed him his swords. And in one swift movement, Zoro cut himself free and blocked all the attacks of the group of Marines that charged him. He said the first one who moved would die, then turned to Luffy, saying he had a mission to fulfill. He was gonna be the world's greatest swordsman, and if Luffy made him abandon his dream for any reason, he wouldn't forgive him. Luffy smiled and said anything less than the greatest swordsman would make the king of the pirates look bad. Luffy was the first man Zoro ever met that had greater ambitions than him, and even though he said he only joined Luffy out of necessity, Luffy truly was the only person he would ever follow, someone like-minded. The first person since Kuina that didn't scoff at his dreams and was aiming for something great, just like him. Zoro didn't have a problem with being a pirate. He only hunted them so he could make a living. All this time, he worked on his own to achieve his dreams. But now, he didn't mind being in a group if it meant they could support each other's goals and work together to achieve them. And it turned out, him and Luffy were a pretty natural team. They took down all the Marines until Helmeppo pointed a gun at Kobe and threatened to shoot. But Luffy geared up to attack him, even while Morgan was right behind him, ready to strike him with his axe hand. But even after being a team for a mere few minutes, he fully trusted Zoro to have his back, and he didn't let him down, saving Luffy and knocking out Morgan with one slash, and calling Luffy his captain. Zoro fully respected Luffy's strength, seeing it firsthand. He could back up everything he was saying, a sharp contrast to Morgan, who talked a big game but didn't have the strength to show for it. So, they'd done it. They got through their first challenge together as crewmates, and it was time to celebrate. The mother of the little girl Zoro saved owned a restaurant and let them eat for free, with Zoro happily eating his fill after nearly starving to death. But Zoro quickly got down to business, asking Luffy what was next, and he said that they were headed for the Grand Line, and Zoro thought as much. He didn't know much about the One Piece, but he at least knew that he needed to be in the Grand Line to find it. The Marines then had to ask them to leave, as they were pirates now, and they were happy to, setting out to sea to achieve their outlandish, ridiculous dreams that only the two of them believed in. They moved on to Orange Town, where they fought the pirate captain Buggy. Zoro rushed headfirst into fighting him, and he sliced him apart with the first attack. Zoro said that was almost disappointing, but when he had his guard down, he was stabbed in the back. Buggy was a Del Fruit user, with the Chop Chop Fruit, the perfect counter to Zoro, someone immune to swords. This was Zoro's first opponent since Kuina to give him a challenge, and was a wake-up call. He trained so hard, learned so much, he thought the only man who would be a challenge to him was Mihawk, so underestimated his opponents. It worked out for him before, but this time he paid for it, and also learned the lesson to expect the unexpected in a world like this, full of a vast array of powers that would only get more unexpected as they progressed to the Grand Line. Luffy then told Zoro to run, and he complied, understanding Luffy's plan. But Buggy went to attack him, but he blocked everything and turned Buggy's own cannon and fired. He ran back to Luffy, who was trapped in a cage, and asked the woman with him who she was, and Luffy said that she was their new navigator, Nami. Zoro didn't really care. He trusted Luffy's judgment to recruit good members, and returned his focus to rescuing him. He picked up a metal and stone cage. Blood poured out of his open wound, and Luffy said his guts would fall out, but he didn't care, saying he'd put them back in if he had to, and started running, carrying his captain on his back, despite the pain, and they were able to get away. Luffy was eventually able to break free, and Zoro had to fight another member of Buggy's crew, a swordsman named Kabaji, so Zoro knew he couldn't let his guard down this time. He was still struggling from his injury though, and Luffy offered to fight him, but Kabaji took the chance to distract him and kick him right in his wound. Zoro screamed out in pain, and Kabaji didn't let up, attacking him again, but Zoro blocked, and he kicked him in the same spot again. Zoro was feeling the worst pain of his life, writhing on the floor, but when Kabaji went in for the killing blow, Zoro got up and knocked him back. Then, he sliced the wound himself. He said his goal was to be the greatest swordsman, so he didn't care if he had to fight with a handicap. Zoro here is punishing himself. He He hasn't forgiven himself for letting his guard down against Buggy, and rather than not admitting to his mistakes, he does the opposite. He makes the consequences of his mistake even worse to make sure he learns from it, and as an added effect, give himself the hardest fight of his life to properly prepare for Mihawk. He doubled down, saying he could never lose even once to someone who called himself a swordsman. If he did, he would be dishonoring Kuina's memory and wasting his years of hard work. Kabaji came at him with his most ferocious techniques, and Buggy assisted him, shooting his hand out to hold Zoro down. But Luffy saved him, just as Zoro had done for him against Captain Morgan. Zoro gave a chuckle, but then got serious, saying he was tired of Kabaji's tricks, thinking he was making a mockery of swordsmanship, and promptly finished him off with his technique that he perfected for years to prove his superiority. Then, with his fight done, collapsed, leaving the rest to his captain, since he wouldn't have joined him if he didn't have complete faith in him. They later landed in Sierra Village, where they met a guy called Usopp, and through some hurdles, they defeated Captain Kuro and the Black Cat Pirates, and also gained a proper ship, the Going Merry. They were preparing to leave, and Usopp started saying he'd see them around and would go out to see himself. But throughout the short adventure together, they really bonded as a team, and it felt like it went without saying he was part of the crew now. So Zoro basically told him to stop yapping and get on board, and so they gained another member. They sailed off and soon met up with Johnny and Yosaku, two bounty hunter friends that Zoro met a while back, and they gave the crew the idea to head to a sea restaurant, Baratie. There, they met a chef named Sanji, but soon the restaurant was attacked by a pirate named Don Krieg. He started wreaking havoc, but everything was interrupted when Krieg's ship was cut in half, and Zoro's goal appeared in front of his eyes, to kill Mihawk. He was stunned to see him in the flesh, all the years of build-up, and his training, all while picturing this very moment. But Zoro was ready. He calmly walked up and asked him if he truly did split that gigantic ship in half, and he said of course. Zoro started sweating, realizing his strength was just as advertised, but his confidence didn't fade. He put on his bandana and told Mihawk he came to sea to find him, and challenged him to a duel. But Mihawk was insulted by the request, calling him pathetic, saying they didn't need to cross blades for him to know he was far above him, and deep down, Zoro did. But he was still confident, and he said that his mindset didn't come from ignorance like Mihawk suggested, but from ambition, and a promise to a friend. But Mihawk wasn't impressed, and took out the smallest knife he had, saying he wasn't the type to hunt rabbits with a cannon. Zoro was angry that Mihawk was taking him lightly, and rushed forward to prove himself. He attacked with his signature technique, Onigiri, which has never failed to defeat every single previous opponent with one blow, but Mihawk blocked it with perfect technique, using only the very tip of his knife to stop all of Zoro's momentum. Zoro was stunned. He had never countered this technique before, let alone like this, in the most flawless way possible. Zoro couldn't believe what was happening. He refused to accept that they were this far apart. He started doubting himself, and swung at Mihawk wildly, but was tossed back like a ragdoll. He charged forward again, but Mihawk dodged and countered like it was as easy to him as breathing. Zoro's mind was in chaos, thinking there was no way he came this far to lose. To break his promise, he had to win. There was no other option. And Mihawk called out his desperation, asking why he tried so hard when he was so weak, and batted him away once again. Zoro prepared another one of his signature moves and went in again, thinking this time of his promise to Luffy. But Mihawk found an opening and stabbed him in the chest. He stood there, refusing to retreat. Mihawk was puzzled, and Zoro told him the reason was that he felt that if he took even one step back, his promise, ambition, and everything he cared about would be shattered, and his dreams would be lost forever. And Mihawk bluntly told him that was what defeat was. So Zoro said he couldn't retreat. He would rather die than be defeated. Mihawk took the knife out and asked for his name. He told him, and Mihawk said he remembered it, and took out his legendary supreme blade, Yoru, saying he would do him the honor of killing him with it, rather than dishonoring him with a death by his knife. This time Mihawk charged, and Zoro prepared his final secret technique, the 3,000 Wounds, and they clashed. But Mihawk utterly defeated him, slicing his two swords he got from the old man in his village apart. He saw a glimpse of the peak of this world, and was hit with the cold hard reality that all his training and preparation over 11 entire years was worthless in the face of his goal. He stood up and opened his defenses. Mihawk was shocked and asked what he was doing, and he responded that wounds on the back were a source of his greatest shame. Mihawk smiled, utterly impressed, and delivered his final blow. Zoro fell into the ocean with his chest sliced open, but Mihawk purposely left him alive. Johnny and Yosaku dragged him back above water, and Mihawk had a message for him. He said it was too soon for him to die. He had to discover himself, see the world, and grow strong. However long it may take, he would wait for him at the top. Zoro was fading in and out of consciousness, but he used the last of his strength to point his sword to the heavens and promised Luffy and Kuina as well that he would never lose again. From that point until the day he beat Mihawk, he would never lose again. Zoro allowed his life to be in Mihawk's hands. If he was feeling different or even in a different mood, Zoro's dreams could have ended right there. This was his ultimate wake-up call. Everything he'd been doing wasn't working, and he had to change. He was truly humble, being a big fish in a small pond. Constantly being told he was a demon and feared wherever he went gave him false confidence, and Mihawk rightfully showed him that. This defeat was the best thing that could have happened to Zoro. If he went into the Grand Line, believing his own hype, he would have met a quick end, and he knew that now. He experienced firsthand what was possible, so being able to visualize that, he could get stronger and evolve faster than ever before.
Where you from?
Zoro was bandaged up and regained consciousness, but he was still in critical condition. However, he had no time to recover, since it turned out that Nami had stolen their ship and taken it to Arlong Park, the residence of the most dangerous pirate in the East Blue. But Zoro didn't care. He wanted to bust right into Arlong Park, even in his condition. So
Where you from, man?
Tied into the ship while they formed a plan. But once the fishermen spotted
like,
them,
comment, subscribe, guys.
with Zoro unable to free himself, and he was captured. He was brought before Arlong himself, but was pissed off, demanding to know where Nami was so they could get off the island and carry on with their journey. Now that his goal was in clearer focus than ever before. But that was when Nami appeared, and Zoro was shocked to learn that she was actually a part of Arlong's crew. He asked if this was the real her, and she said it was. But after Arlong mentioned the death of her dad, her face changed, and Zoro suspected she was lying, so put her to the test, and jumped into the ocean while tied up, resigning himself to drown, predicting that Nami would save him, just as he thought she did. This shows Zoro's commitment to the crew. His passion for his dreams was greater than it had ever been, but he risked it all to get the crew back together. He was thrown in jail, but Nami came to free him when Arlong was away. But he took the chance to instead demolish Arlong's entire crew and sit on his throne, saying he could leave, but he promised Luffy to get Nami back, and would stop at nothing to fulfill that promise. Later, the crew learned that Nami only joined Arlong to protect her village, and so all that was left to do was defeat Arlong and his crew. Nami and her village would be safe. Zoro was once again matched up with the swordsman, this time the 6 sword-wielding Hachi. He caught Johnny and Yosaku's swords and dug through the guards of the 6 swords to slice Hachi, and this angered him. And he said that his 3 swords was no match for 6, but Zoro replied that his 3 swords carried much more weight than his, and even while on the brink of death, proved it, defeating him by cutting through his swords and dealing a finishing blow. Later on, he confronted Arlong while Sanji went to rescue Luffy, but in his current state, couldn't fight him. And Arlong picked him up by the neck. He ripped off his bandages, and the true extent of his horrifying injuries were revealed. And even Arlong, the East Blue's strongest, wondered how Zoro was even alive after taking this much damage, a testament to Mihawk's belief in Zoro, dealing a blow like this to him to test if he could come through it alive. But his sacrifice in confronting Arlong in this state paid off, and Luffy was rescued, trading places with Zoro, which tested his durability once again. But in the end, Luffy beat Arlong, just as Zoro expected. And with that, they completed their journey in the East Blue, and it was time for the big leagues. But before then, they had to get through Logtown, the final island in the East Blue. And while there, Zoro decided he might as well buy some swords since he needs some new ones soon if he planned to do well in the Grand Line. As he was looking around, he saw a lady being threatened and was about to step in to help, but she easily sliced through her attackers, but slipped and fell in front of Zoro. He picked up her glasses for her, but as he looked at her face, his mind got scrambled. She was the spitting image of Kuina, but he tried not to think about it and walked into a sword shop. He told the owner his budget, and he told him he could pick 2 swords from a barrel. But the girl from earlier came in and identified one of them as a legendary blade, but the shop owner said it was cursed, so Zoro decided to put that curse to the test. It was his luck versus the sword's curse. This was the kind of drastic measure he needed after the Mihawk fight. It was the only way to make the rapid improvements he needed to even get close to Mihawk's level. And even if the curse prevailed, it would mean he just wasn't meant to be the greatest swordsman. So threw the sword in the air and stuck it on him. Either it would slice it clean off, or he would gain a new legendary sword to improve his strength. And his luck beat out the sword's curse, so he took it. And the shop owner was so impressed that he gave him the best sword in his shop, finally feeling whole again with 3 swords. He met back up with the crew, and they set out for the Grand Line. They all made a declaration of their goals, and now, it was finally time to pursue them for real. They landed on Whiskey Peak, where they were met with a warm welcome for the locals. Zoro happily drank his fill, and the rest of the crew did the same, letting their guards down. But in actuality, the entire town was filled with bounty hunters. Their tactic was to welcome new pirates entering the Grand Line, then turn them into the Marines to claim their bounty. But Zoro didn't fall for it, saying a true swordsman never drinks himself into a stew. He was surrounded by 100 bounty hunters, and he took them all on, using this chance to test out his new swords. That night, he took down 100 expert bounty hunters, and this would be the beginning of his legendary legacy. They then sailed off and ended up in Alabasta, where they were embroiled in sea. The perpetrators were Baroque Works, the group that approached Zoro a while back. He easily dealt with Mr. 7 back then, but now it was up to him to take down Mr. 1. And when he attacked him, his body was immune to his strikes. He again encountered a Delph user that couldn't be damaged by him, this time because Mr. 1 ate the dice fruit, turning his entire body into a sword. His body was made out of steel, and Zoro learned his lesson to not underestimate it. Zoro started using all of his signature moves, but as you might expect, nothing even scratched Mr. 1. Zoro said that was too bad. He couldn't cut steel yet, so he couldn't beat him. But because of this, he felt sorry for Mr. 1. He was waiting to be driven into a corner like this, so he could surpass his current strength. So when he defeated him, it would mean he would be able to cut through steel. Mr. 1 said that no swordsman had ever put a scratch on him, but Zoro replied that he'd never met a swordsman like him before, and they clashed once again. Mr. 1 employed his fruit to its fullest extent, using every part of his body as a sword, and not only that, but customizing it further, and making all different types of weapons. And with overwhelming pressure, he launched Zoro backwards into a building. The rubble collapsed on him, which would crush any ordinary man to death, but Zoro refused to die. He thought to himself that he reached the brink of death countless times, so what was missing? And then, he remembered the lesson his sensei taught him. Back then, Zoro said he heard there were people who could cut through steel, and his sensei said that was true, and demonstrated by throwing a piece of paper in the air, swinging his sword, and not cutting through it. Zoro was confused, but the lesson was that there were swordsmen who were able to not cut through anything, and those were the same ones who could cut through steel. In other words, control was the answer. Having such control of your sword and your own power to be able to swing at a piece of paper and not cut through it if you choose, was what could allow you to have the control to cut through even steel. And even though Zoro didn't understand the lesson back then, he did now. He lifted the building he was buried under and threw it at Mr. 1, ready to put his sensei's teachings into practice. He went in again, but things weren't clicking. He still couldn't do any damage. Mr. 1 used more strange techniques and was able to catch Zoro off guard and slice him. He threw Zoro back once again, and Zoro told himself to not show his back. He couldn't allow himself to be wounded there by anyone, so he turned, and Mr. 1 delivered a lethal slash. Rubble again rained down on Zoro, but this time he wasn't hit by any of it. Mr. 1 asked how he dodged it, but he said he didn't. He just knew where the stone wouldn't fall. He flipped the stone over, knowing exactly where his sword was buried. His senses were heightened more than ever before. He was one with his surroundings, feeling like everything around him was alive, and he thought this was it, the power to cut steel. But his body was near death. He was barely conscious. He had just enough energy for one final attack. He raised the sword, and Mr. 1 asked if he thought he could defend himself with just one sword. He replied that he wouldn't defend himself. He would go purely on offense. Either his attack would hit Mr. 1 first and be powerful enough to not only pierce his skin, but take him down as well, or Zoro would die. He got into his stance, while hearing the voices of everything around him with more clarity than ever before, everything fell into place. He thanked Mr. 1, because now he discovered he had the power to cut through steel, and was one step closer to his dreams. They left Alabasta, and through their journey discovered a map of a sky island named Skypiea. Luffy wanted to go there, so they went to Giant to learn more information about it. They walked into a bar, and a guy named Bellamy came up to Luffy. He acted nice at first, offering him a drink, but Zoro saw what Bellamy's plan was, and pulled out his sword. Bellamy slammed Luffy through the table, but at the same moment, Zoro put his sword to Bellamy's neck. He wouldn't let anyone disrespect and harm the man he pledged himself to. Zoro's word was ironclad, and he would fight anyone for his captain. But Luffy asked him to do the opposite, and he obeyed completely. Zoro isn't just a hothead looking for fights. He'll do what's best for his captain, whether it's defending him or letting himself get hit, because his pride means nothing in the face of his loyalty. But in the end, their mockery meant nothing, and they did make it to Skypiea, just as Luffy said they would. Nothing huge in terms of Zoro's character happened here, except for this moment, of course.
Mom, thanks again for sending me the money so I can buy this slow cooker.
and after saving the people of Skypiea from the tyranny of Enel, they headed back down to the Blue Sea. They landed on Longring Longland, where they encountered Admiral Aokiji. Zoro blocked his attack, saving Robin, but in the process got his arm frozen. Aokiji was 1/3 of one of the 3 great powers in the world. Mihawk coincidentally was part of another one of the 3 powers, being a warlord. And this again showed Zoro his level compared to the very strongest in the world, and showed him how much work he still had to do. Luffy ended up convincing Aokiji to let them go, and he sailed off to Water 7 to find himself a shipwright to repair the Going Merry, which had taken a lot of damage throughout their journey. Zoro stayed on the ship, and soon a shipwright named Kaku came over to look at the Merry. But after a while, he told Zoro that it was impossible to repair, and they'd have to get another ship. Zoro was saddened by this. He, like the rest of the crew, had gotten attached to the Merry. But when they all got back together, Luffy made the tough choice to leave the Merry behind, as it was unsafe to sail with her any longer. But this brought out pure rage in Usopp. He was the most attached to the Merry for many reasons, and him and Luffy got into a big argument that culminated in Usopp saying he would leave the crew. Zoro didn't say anything, and just thought back on the moment he first asked Usopp to join them. Usopp left, and then challenged Luffy to a duel for the ownership of the Merry. Zoro watched on with a blank expression on his face, waiting for the result, and in the end, as everyone expected, Luffy came out as the winner. Luffy started shaking, with tears welling up in his eyes, and Zoro told him that was the burden of being the captain. He couldn't doubt himself. If he became unsure, who else could they have faith in? Zoro took his position as vice captain very seriously, and would step up and give advice and support to his captain to keep him on the right track, and this wouldn't be the last instance of that. Later, it turned out that Kaku and the other shipwrights were members of a government organization named CP9, and they had recruited Robin to their cause. Luffy refused to believe Robin joined them, but she told Sanji and Chopper that she did. Zoro put his foot down and laid out the situation, saying she started off as their enemy, and they let her on their ship, so it was time to really consider if she was an enemy or friend. Zoro started going over the situation bluntly, talking about the worst case scenarios, preparing the crew as a vice captain should, ultimately saying that whatever move Robin and CP9 would make, they would make it that night. Luffy said they would be there. They confronted CP9, and Robin said she would leave, but Luffy yelled out, telling her he wouldn't let her leave like this. He charged headfirst after her, but the CP9 agents were immovable. They went on the offensive, kicking Luffy, but it wasn't an ordinary kick. As a swordsman, Zoro recognized it as a slash, and told the rest of the crew to get down. Then, he charged directly for Kaku, the swordsman of the group, and clashed blades with him. Zoro held him off, telling Luffy to get Robin, but Kaku took advantage of him, taking his attention away, and stabbed him right in the chest. Zoro collapsed while Luffy was held back, and they were unable to stop Robin from leaving. The main agent Robelucci then grabbed Luffy and threw him out of the building, so Zoro went in to attack him, but he kicked him out of the building as well. It was an utter defeat for the entire crew, but there was one silver lining. They later discovered that Robin didn't actually betray them. She made a deal with CP9 that she would turn herself in exchange for them allowing the Straw Hats to leave Water 7 peacefully. She sacrificed herself for them, and that was all Zoro needed to hear to get her fully on board the cause to rescue her. But she was on a train, being taken to Judgment Island, and he's
One
locked.
Piece became
But
a
through
bullshit.
determination and a little bit of luck,
Not
they were
really,
able to board
my
another
guy.
train. Catching up with Robin
One Piece is
fast.
cool.
On the way, they encountered a part of the original train stranded on the tracks. They didn't know how it got disconnected, but Luffy simply ordered Zoro to cut through it, and he obeyed his captain. He then fought a marine captain named T-Bone. They both had mutual respect, but Zoro did what had to be done for them to progress further. They soon arrived at Enies lobby, and Zoro was once again face to face with Kaku. He was pushed to the brink
One
because
Piece
multiple
is lit, bro.
inconveniences, and
Keep
Kaku
watching
being a
it.
genuinely strong opponent, being the number 2 in CP9, and having just eaten a powerful devil fruit, no matter how goofy might have seemed. They went back and forth, with Zoro gradually ramping up, until he decided to unveil his ultimate technique.
What's
the
up,
Nine
what's
Swords
up, man? What's
Dahashira.
up?
This move was so powerful, he was able to project 3 of himself, along with 9 swords as a result, and it wasn't just an illusion, as the power boost he got from it very much felt to Kaku like he was suddenly fighting 3 Zoros, and after that, he made quick work of him. This fight was the farthest Zoro had been pushed in a long time, having to utilize a secret technique, which we don't know exactly when he created. He met back up with Sanji, and said they had to hurry to Robin. She sacrificed herself for them, and Zoro's honor and loyalty wouldn't allow him to fail in rescuing her. And along with helping the
You
rest of
gotta
them, they did.
stay tuned,
Now,
man.
with Luffy beating Robelucci, it
There's
was time
different
for them to
content.
leave.
Like
They
today
had
I'm
no
at
way off
work.
the island, as they were
I'm
surrounded
watching
by
One
enemy
Piece.
warships. But just
We're
then,
doing fishing
Usopp
content,
started to jump
airsoft
off
content,
the
so
ocean.
stay tuned.
And
Subscribe
although
if you
Zoro didn't
want, but I would
understand his
recommend
plan,
you guys
he
to
trusted
subscribe.
him. And when they did jump off, they landed into the Going Merry. The Merry had come to save them, but unfortunately, the situation with the Merry hadn't changed. This last-ditch effort to rescue them was the final thing it could muster, and it couldn't sail any further, so they had to say goodbye. And although Zoro didn't have the same connection to the Merry as the rest of the Straw Hats, he still stood there, stoic, paying his respects to their crewmate. Speaking of crewmates, there was a situation of Usopp. Everyone on the crew, including Zoro,
Chapter
wanted him back.
117?
But as they rushed to welcome
Maybe
him with
next
open
Thursday.
arms,
This
Zoro
upcoming
stopped
Thursday, I
him.
meant.
He wouldn't let them get him back that easily.
They
He
release
told Luffy
manga
he
every
better not let him
Thursday.
back on unless he
Every
apologized.
Thursday.
The crew got angry at it, but he told them to shut up. He carried on, saying it didn't matter who was right or wrong when Luffy and Usopp argued. But the fact was that when two men decide to have a duel, the winner is the only thing that matters. And Usopp lost, on his own terms, and left the crew as a result. He said that Luffy might be an idiot, but he was still the captain, and they were better off without a crewmate who couldn't respect their captain when things got tough. Any crew that allowed that to happen was destined to fail. He turned to Luffy, saying he didn't care how much he missed around usually, but he was his captain, and if he didn't act like it at a time like this, Zoro would be the next one to leave. The crew thought he was just complicating things, but Zoro replied that he was all for Usopp coming back, but if he didn't address and apologize for what he did, and try to sweep it under the rug, Zoro wouldn't forgive him, and they would leave Usopp behind on that island. They tried to say that Zoro could tell Usopp all this after
Oh yeah,
they
I
let him
watched
back
all
on
of that,
board,
bro.
but this
It's pretty
pushed Zoro
good.
over the edge,
I
shouting,
know so much
asking
about
them
that.
if he would
I
leave
know
them
about the
nothing.
connector and all that.
Zoro takes his position as vice captain very seriously, even if he might not always look like it. He's gone to hell and back to rescue his crewmates and keep the crew together, so he wouldn't stand for his crewmates not taking the sanctity of their crew as seriously as he did, feeling they could leave and join whenever they wanted, accept each other back on a whim. Zoro was usually relaxed, but he was absolutely immovable on the bare minimums. They weren't playing pirates here. When he pledged himself to Luffy, he knew the life he was getting into, and he was willing to risk it all for his crewmates. And he refused to be part of a crew that didn't have the same mindset. And luckily, they all ended up agreeing, seeing how right he was. They prepared to set sail, and Usopp at first did what Zoro predicted, acting like the duel and his departure never happened, or that it was a joke, or some other lie or excuse. But the crew stood firm, refusing to let him back on if he didn't own up to his mistakes. Usopp fell to his knees, seeing his beloved crew sail off without him, and he screamed out that he was sorry. He was sorry for being stubborn, for saying he was quitting, and begged them to let him take it back. He yelled out to please let him join them again, and Luffy stretched out his arm and ordered them back. Zoro smiled. That was all he wanted, all of them to be on the same page, and now that they were ready to move on with their journey. But there was still a small problem. Zoro left the island with one less sword, since the one he had gotten from the salesman back in Logtown was destroyed during their battle to escape. So once again, he was down to 2 swords and didn't feel quite right. He could have gotten another random one, but Zoro would rather be a sword down than have to settle for one below his level. So he figured he'd find a suitable one along the way. And that brings us to Thriller Bark. He encountered his ancestor, Shimotsuki Ryuma, or at least his reanimated corpse, but even still, he had all the skill and finesse he had while still alive. But luckily, he was severely handicapped by only having access to Brook's techniques. At the same time though, Zoro was handicapped as well by only having access to 2 swords, so this fight would be quite even. Zoro was fighting for multiple things: the honor of his ancestor and the greatest swordsman, by putting him to rest in peace instead of him having to live on as a zombie servant for Moria. He was also fighting for his legendary blade Shisui. Zoro was astonished by his technique and speed. This corpse was able to block his moves with ease. They were fighting a perfectly even match, but Zoro could feel himself and even his swords wearing down, saying they could break if the fight went on much longer. But Ryuma was feeling the strain as well, so they both decided to put their all into one final clash, and put it all on the line, and Zoro was able to connect first. As Ryuma was fading away, he said that his legendary blade would surely be satisfied with Zoro as his new master, and Zoro caught it. Telling Ryuma he wished he could have seen him in his prime. As a swordsman, this fight, even if it was against a lesser version of Ryuma, must have felt like a rite of passage, an incredibly high honor for Zoro. And as his reward, he got one of the finest swords in the world, both in reputation and in quality. They went on to fight Gecko Moria, and Luffy was able to defeat him, but the crew was completely exhausted, having been pushed to the edge. But at that moment, they were confronted by yet another warlord, Bartholomew Kuma. With Luffy being unconscious after his fight, Zoro offered to take on Kuma himself, and after taking down some others that tried to fight him, Kuma agreed. Usopp yelled out that Zoro was too injured to fight, but he responded that at times like this, you have to step up. Making excuses wouldn't do anything, and if he died there, he wasn't worth much to begin with. And with that, he drew his swords and attacked Kuma. But it did nothing, and Kuma fired back. Zoro barely moved out of the way, but even so, just the shockwave of the attack made his breathing ragged. He tried to attack again, and he realized that Kuma had the ability to deflect any attack, so it was useless. The battle was going downhill fast for Zoro, so the crew jumped in to help, but they were just as ineffective as him. So Kuma gave them an offer. He would spare their lives if they gave him Luffy's head, but without even having to think about it, they screamed that they never would, and Kuma unleashed his biggest attack yet. Everyone was knocked unconscious, so Kuma dug through the rubble and found Luffy, but as he went to pick him up, Zoro slashed him, revealing he was part cybernetic. Zoro reiterated Kuma's offer to take the head of Luffy in exchange for the rest of them to leave alive, then offered his own head instead.
Progress security.
He said that one day he would have become the world's greatest swordsman without a doubt, so his life was valuable. Kuma was shocked. Zoro had that much ambition and confidence, but was willing to end his journey there for the sake of Luffy.
Yeah, this
And
is
Zoro
the
replied
location.
that was the only way
How
to
can I
save
help
his
you?
crew. What good was his ambition if he couldn't even save the life of his own captain? Luffy was the man that would become the king of the pirates.
Yes.
But right then, Sanji emerged,
Okay,
saying
I'm
he was right
at
about Luffy.
Apex
He had his
materials.
feet.
Are you guys ready to steal, or should I have gone around the roundabout and went the other way?
Once you get off the Apex exit, you should have made
Right
left.
now, I see the Apex sign.
Yeah, so once you get off on the Apex freeway, you want to make a left and go all the way down, hit the roundabout, and come up.
Man. 16
So, do I
hours,
go
like,
around the roundabout,
16
or
hours to gag
do I go past Apex is what I'm asking you. Do I go past Apex, up that hill?
From what I'm hearing, it doesn't sound like you're going the right way. So what you got to do is once you take the exit, the Apex exit, you'll turn left. And then after that, you'll go all the way down. There'll be another roundabout, go all the way around, and then you'll be pretty much going
No
up.
outlet. It says Michaelanus, it says no outlet that way.
Yeah, I'm not sure, honestly.
My tremendous is
Okay,
this
please,
street.
hey, I need you to listen to me, please, I need your help. I am at Apex right now. I'm at the Apex material. I'm sitting right here. So, are you guys west of Apex, or are you at the bottom of Apex? Do you come after Apex or before Apex?
You're talking about the Apex exit, right?
It says Apex Materials, LLC.
I never heard of that, ma'am. I never heard of that part. That sign you're referring
Okay,
to.
when I come to the first roundabout, do I go around the whole circle?
Okay, let's start at the exit. So when you got to where you are and you exit off the freeway, it said Apex, right?
Yes, I made a left off of the freeway. I made that left.
Okay, so yeah, you'll go in the roundabout. Don't take that first turn. Go all the way around, then it's like a straight road, right?
A straight road. So I go around the circle, the full circle, and go to that next exit? There's
So-
only two ways you can go.
So yeah, once you go around it, you can make that first turn. Don't make that first one, make the second one.
Okay? So even though it says no outlet, still go that way?
Remember, but it's my chemist is
It says no outlet. I'm gonna tell you the name of that exit that you're telling me to take, because it says no outlet. So if there's no outlet, how am I gonna, I'm in a tractor trailer, I'm in a semi-truck.
It's called my chemist. There's something like that street. I know something.
I'll take the truck and go find her.
I'm trying to get there, I got a 5 o'clock appointment, okay, the name of the street says, just bear with me, don't hang up on me, the name of that, I'm going around, you said, don't take the first one, go to the second one, right?
Correct. So
Okay.
you know how you're taking the roundabout and then it's pretty much like in your direction, that would have been like the right turn and there's no technical left turn when you're in the roundabout. That's a right turn.
Okay.
There's two right turns,
I
right?
see another semi truck going The name of the street is called Michaelonis Way. I go that way.
I think that's the street, yeah. I think that's the street. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, that's the street right there.
Okay, so
Ma'am, if you can hear me, I can't hear you. I believe it's the connection. But take that Michaelonis Way Street,
I'm gonna bring it all the way here.
and it's gonna bring you all the way to where you need to be. Take that street.
okay, so when I get to the second roundabout, where do I go? Stay around that too?
Second roundabout.
Yeah, is there gonna be another roundabout or no?
No, no, I don't know. Where did you see another roundabout? Are you just saying that?
I did, yeah, I'm just saying that. I didn't see one, I'm just saying that.
Nah, don't. You're good. First, just follow the steps you're given. Like, so take that street down, and then from there, it's gonna lead you all the way to the facility. It's gonna tell you exactly where to go to. So when you go all the way down, it's gonna be a right turn. As soon as you go all the way down the street, go straight, then you'll make a left turn for the trucks. And you know, it's pretty simple after that.
All right, thank you, I appreciate it. I'll call back if I need help. I appreciate you guys.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you.
All right.
She lost me with the freeway part, cause I never could get free up here.
I never heard of somebody get that lost. Damn. I feel it though, but
I
damn.
never took the freeway up there.
Yeah.
So since I freeway, she lost because I never took the freeway up there.
Yeah, I'm like, damn, hold on. You talking about two roundabouts? Slow down, follow the instructions.
Right.
She threw me off. Two roundabouts, huh? Ain't no two, it's only one. I'm like, you gotta be just saying shit at that point.
I never took the freeway up there.
Oh yeah, it's a little bit more, not really. When I first started working here, I got stuck down the hill right there, but then I came up and I figured it out, but she's all the way by the roundabout trying to figure out which direction. I'm like, damn, your GPS tells you at least to get up to this part. I hope she don't bring that big ass truck this way.
Some guy already did that.
Cause there's a sign right there.
Right. What the fuck?
Fuck was
What the hell was that? Hey.
the hell? Thought it was an earthquake. I'm like,
I was like, some guy turned out good. I'm like, we got color, let's go.
I was like, what the hell's going on? What's gonna happen?
Right. All right, guys, you guys have a good one.
You too, take care.
But Zora knocked him out, refusing to put the spurs on his knees after
What the hell is this?
Yeah. Something big had to have dropped or
I was like, you just need to set you the whole residence. Really?
yeah, for a second I was gonna be like, man, I'm on my way. I'm gonna bring the Rover. Cause they left their Rover for the shift leads, huh? Yeah, I'm gonna be like, you know what? Fuck it. I use it for a good little use. I have to help a truck driver get up here.
It would be shameful to him if he, as the vice captain, allowed one of his crewmates to sacrifice himself while the captain was unconscious. It had to be him, and Kuma accepted his offer, but with one catch. In his words, he'd give him a glimpse of hell. He extracted all the pain and suffering from Luffy's body that he gave throughout his entire life-threatening battle with Moria, and Zoro would have to take on the suffering if he truly wanted to take Luffy's place. He was near death himself, so taking on the injuries of someone else who was near death would be too much for him. So Kuma said he would die, and gave him just a fraction of the pain to see for himself. As Zoro took it in, he screamed at the top of his lungs, coughing up blood and collapsing after only feeling the tiniest bit of the pain that was to come. But he stood up, saying all he asked was to change location, so his crew wouldn't see what would come next. He stood there, in front of the sum of all of his captain's suffering, and without hesitation, jumped headfirst into it. As promised, Kuma left the island. Zoro had protected his crew. As they woke up one by one, Sanji went looking for Zoro, and found him, standing with his arms crossed, in a pool of his own blood. Sanji was mortified, and shouted, asking him how he was alive. Where did Kuma go? What happened? But Zoro had one simple response.
Could I get a large pepperoni pizza for delivery? It's home.
Did pizza work like this? Luffy had no clue what Zoro had done, and he chose to keep it that way. Zoro wasn't loyal for recognition or praise. He was loyal because that was the pledge he made to himself. And he wouldn't be able to sleep at night if he didn't adhere to his own promises. So it didn't matter if no one else knew what he had to do to prove his loyalty to himself. They sailed off, heading for the Sabaody archipelago. Their goal was to head into the New World, the second half of the Grand Line, where Zoro would face the toughest swordsman yet. But on Sabaody, they would find out they weren't yet ready. Zoro yet again came face to face with Kuma, and he just asked, if he were to take a trip, where would he want to go? Then, with one swipe, he made Zoro disappear. Kuma had the ability to send people across the world by making them soar through the sky, and in Zoro's case, he was sent to the Gloom Island on the Grand Line. He was rendered unconscious from all his injuries and was found by Perona, one of Moria's henchmen who was also sent here by Kuma. She bandaged him up and took him to a nearby castle. He woke up, and after remembering what happened, screamed in anger that he wasn't able to do anything to help his captain and crew, and felt completely powerless. When he got his strength up, he started walking around the island, and encountered sword-wielding monkeys. He had no reason to fight in his current state, so returned to the castle, and after a while, someone arrived. Mihawk. It turned out he lived on this island, and he came with news. In just a short amount of time, Zoro was on the island unconscious. His captain had fought through countless obstacles, let alone an entire war, all to save his brother, who in the end died anyway. Zoro was mortified. He was not only separated from his crew in a time of peril, he wasn't there for his captain at his absolute lowest moment. He needed to get off the island and back to Luffy. Mihawk warned him about the danger of the monkeys, but he refused to listen, so Mihawk gave him a boat. He fought through countless monkeys, with the boat being destroyed in the process. After a while, Mihawk came out and told him the monkeys were called human drills, and adapted to the warring humans they saw on the island in the past, so were immensely powerful. Mihawk asked him to come back to his castle, but Zoro said he needed to go out to sea and continue fighting, even while near death from his injuries. After some time, he did return to the castle. He went before Mihawk and bowed his head to the ground, submitting himself to the man he trained every day of his life to be, and asked him to be his teacher. Mihawk was disgusted. This wasn't the same man filled with pride that he first met. He told him to leave and that he was humiliating himself, but Zoro just replied that he wanted to get stronger. Mihawk was disappointed. Zoro lost to the monkeys and wasn't able to go out to sea, so he came here groveling to him. He had nothing to teach a man who couldn't keep his word, but he was wrong about Zoro. He told Mihawk that he did beat the monkeys, which shocked him. Zoro had no reason to submit himself, so he didn't understand why he was begging his greatest enemy to teach him. But Zoro responded that it was all to surpass him. Mihawk burst out in laughter at the idea he wanted him to teach him what he knew so he could one day use those skills to kill him. And Mihawk now understood. Zoro truly was the same man he met before, but now there was something he valued more than his pride. So, understanding his mistake, he agreed to teach Zoro, admiring his ambition. Zoro was willing to cast aside his own pride in order to get stronger as fast as possible, to be able to protect his crew and captain in the future. No matter how high a standard he put on others, it was nothing compared to the pressure he put on himself. He was willing to do the unthinkable, bow down to his enemy. If it meant he could get stronger for his captain. And that was exactly the plan. Luffy sent the entire crew a message that they would meet back up in 2 years, and to use that time to get stronger. Zoro understood that they weren't at the level of the New World, and he had a long way to go, but training with Mihawk would fast-track him more than anything else. His short fight with him taught Zoro more than 11 years of training beforehand did, so 2 entire years would be life-changing. So Zoro let Perona treat his injuries, and when he healed up, began his training with his future rival. Mihawk was a pretty hands-off instructor, just telling him the basics of hockey and letting him figure out the rest, saying he wasn't allowed any alcohol until he could turn his blades black with arm in hockey. Evidently, with the extra motivation, he did, and advanced immensely during these 2 years. Not many details are known, but he used his time and the privilege of Mihawk's knowledge to advance further than he ever would have otherwise. When the time was almost up, Perona was the one to take him back to Sabayoti, and he actually arrived before any of the others tried, a feat that wouldn't have been possible without Perona, no doubt. After she left, he got bored and wandered around, coming across a fisherman. He told him he wanted to go fishing, and the man told him to get on his boat. But Zoro got on a pirate ship by mistake, and got comfortable, falling asleep. But before he woke up, the ship went underwater towards Fishman Island. He was woken up by this, and immediately sliced the ship in half, causing it to go back to the surface. After this ordeal, he met up with the rest of the crew, and they went down to Fishman Island. He got to show off his new strength, and pulled off the incredible feat of easily defeating a fishman while underwater, and later defeating the greatest swordsman on the island, again with ease. On the next island, Azure, Zoro came up against Monet. She thought he wouldn't attack her since she was a woman, but he compared himself to a wild beast, saying he could never guarantee he wouldn't attack. He then charged towards her. She was frozen with fear, unable to move at all, and he sliced clean through her, but he didn't kill her. Due to her Del Fruit, if she was sliced without the use of Haki, she could regenerate, and Zoro didn't use Haki on purpose, to show her how easily he could kill her, which had a much greater effect than just killing her ever would have, as the trauma from knowing her life was only spared on a whim made her lose control of her body, unable to attack him again. Zoro was like a different character compared to 2 years before. He filled into his shoes of being a top swordsman in the world, and carried himself accordingly, treating those weaker than him as Mihawk would. No doubt his teachings and beliefs rubbed off on Zoro. After that, they made their way to Dressrosa, a rather uneventful arc for Zoro as he spent most of it lost, but in the end, he did have a chance to show off his immense strength in a whole different way, a more direct and clear way, by simply slicing through the biggest opponent possible, one that was the size of a mountain.
Huh. Who did the original? Get the Google app and tap the microphone to search a song. Hum.
Thank you, I have it.
And get a match. How more...
But the next island they went to was special to Zoro, whether he knew it or not, his ancestral homeland, Wano. He took up the name Zoro Juro, as Kinemon asked the Straw Hats to disguise themselves and lay low, take up jobs around the capital. But Zoro wasn't interested in that, so instead became a Ronin, and was soon framed for a few murders and brought in for trial. He sat before the magistrate, and they accused him not only of the killings, but of grave robbing Ryuma for his soul. He was then handed a knife to commit seppuku, a ritual in where a person guilty of a crime can take their own life instead of having to be executed, to be seen as dying an honorable death. Zoro understood, and said farewell, but he wasn't talking about himself. He turned that tiny knife on the magistrate, and said he smelled blood on him, and that he was the one who committed the murders. Then, from all the way across from him, defeated him with one slash. This is a parallel to Mihawk using that tiny knife all the way back in the Baratie, alongside the numerous occasions of Zoro slicing through things like Mihawk did Don Krieg's ship, most recently and obviously slicing through the ship at Sabayoti. These are some nice touches to build up similarities between the two future rivals, and also clearly showing one-to-one proof of Zoro creeping closer and closer to the level of Mihawk we were shown at the very start. Zoro apologized to Kinemon, as he now made a huge fuss and would have the eyes of the whole country on him, when he was supposed to lay low. He then ran to Yukimaru, who had taken Shisui. The sword was a national treasure before it was stolen, and it was of utmost importance to the people of Wano that it returned to the country. But Zoro had gotten attached to it, and had fought fairly for it. Even the spirit of Ryuma said it was rightfully his, so he fought Yukimaru to get it back. But was interrupted by Kamazo, the disguise of Killer, Captain Kid's second in command. He was being attacked from 2 different angles, and as a result, Killer stabbed him. But Zoro only smiled, refusing to let Killer take his blade out of him. He swung to get him away, then took the scythe out himself, and once again had 3 blades, and from there, it only took 1 attack to finish Killer. But he passed out from his injuries, and lost his chance to get Shisui back. But when one door closes, another one opens, and he met Hiyori, who gave him an alternative. Enma, the sword once used by Kozuki Oden, and he was the only man to ever tame it. Zoro was told to test it out, and when he was only meant to cut down a single tree, with one slash, the sword cut through an entire cliffside, and Zoro's arm shrunk down. The sword was draining Zoro's haki and energy rapidly, and he had to constantly pump more into it just to be able to use it. Everyone warned him against using the sword for this reason. It could be as much of a burden as a benefit, and it could harm you during a fight if you weren't careful. But Zoro said no, he'd take it, saying that if he was able to master it, he would be many times stronger. And that was what Zoro liked. He wasn't afraid of hard work or seemingly impossible challenges. No, what really would terrify him is not seeing any way for him to get stronger and grow. But if there was a way for him to advance, he was more than happy to jump headfirst into it. He started training with Enma and got used to it somewhat, and he was told that his treasured sword, the Wado Ichimonji, was made by the same man that made Enma. But Zoro didn't have much time to train, and was forced to put his control of Enma to the test just a few days later, because it was time for them to invade Onigashima and fight a full Emperor's crew for the first time. They made it to the rooftop, and he saw Luffy knock down Kaido, and he smiled, seeing how far they came. He later blocked a combined attack from the two Emperors from hitting Luffy, allowing him to barely get out of the way. Then, he left his captain to fight Kaido one-on-one, to take down the challenge in front of him. But Zoro had his own. This was his biggest test since Mihawk. He was tasked with taking on Kaido's vice captain, the mysterious King. They clashed, and Zoro noticed there are flames and wings on his back, regardless of whether he was in his Devil Fruit transformation or not, and thought he must have been part of the race he didn't know about. King launched him back. Zoro thought he could only win if he found out what King was. As he was getting tired, Enma took control and drained the haki out of his arm. He was able to regain control, but Enma still threatened to take over at any moment, and this was the risk in using the sword. King took the chance to charge forward, but stopped right in front of Zoro. He stabbed King, but he exploded. Zoro was barely able to survive, covering himself with haki at the last second. He then attacked again, but it did no damage to King. Zoro was surprised that one of his strongest attacks did nothing, and after using so much energy on it, Enma drained his haki again, and he couldn't protect himself from King's counterattack. King knocked Wado Ichimonji away from him, and while picking it up, it made him realize something. How did a sword crafted by the same man who made Enma end up in the East Blue? He thought back to his childhood, and remembered. The man who sat by the cliff, that gave him his first two swords, was the one who crafted Enma. And after recalling all the lessons the old man preached about swords choosing their masters, Zoro realized. Throughout this fight, Enma was testing him, seeing if he was worthy to fill Kozuki Oden's shoes. That man was able to wield Enma, even while it drained this much haki out of him. So if Zoro wanted to measure up, he'd have to adapt, and become strong enough to be worthy of this sword. But Zoro thought that was impossible. He'd die if he just kept pouring in more haki. But no, at that moment, Enma brought something out of him. As it drained his haki, it also caused another form of haki to leak out, Conqueror's haki. The manifestation of Zoro's dreams and ambition. He remembered his promises to Luffy and Kuina, and smiled. He started fighting King again, reinvigorated, and was able to figure out the rules of King's body. When the flames on his back but also got weaker, that was the time to strike. He was now able to damage King, but it wasn't going to be easy to do so. This was still the right-hand man of an emperor, and King proved it by launching Zoro through the building. Zoro said that he didn't have much time. If he dragged it on, Enma would kill him, and he said now it was the Straw Hat's time to be on top. Zoro slashed him, but as expected, it didn't do anything as the flames were still on. King countered, unleashing fire as hot as magma. They disengaged, and Zoro felt King getting faster, so knew his defenses were down, and caught him with the perfect strike, slicing him right down the middle. Zoro kept the pressure up and taunted King, saying he was blocking even while his flames were up, scared that Zoro had the potential to damage him even in that state. But King kept up the bravado, saying he remembered Zoro as a decent swordsman, but Zoro replied that if he survived, he'd be scarred so bad that he'd never forget. King intended to finish it, going in with his final attack, but Zoro ran headfirst into it, and sliced through it all, finishing him with one perfect attack, even while his flames were still on, leaving no doubt who was stronger. It was now the Straw Hat's era, and Luffy proved it by taking down Kaido, just as Zoro knew he would. Luffy was named as one of the emperors, and now they were cemented, and the entire crew were closer to their dreams than ever before. They headed towards the island of the future, Egghead, and there he met his old rival, Kaku. But now, even though both had gotten stronger, Zoro had widened the gap between them even more, but their fight got interrupted, and Zoro had a new challenge in front of him, S-Hawk, a pacifista modeled after Mihawk. Zoro went into clash with him and tested if he was really similar to the man he was modeled after, but Zoro said he wasn't. that even the Seraphim was more human than Mihawk was. Zoro might have seen something in those 2 years, because it doesn't seem like Zoro was only referring to Mihawk being inhumanly strong, but something else as well. Zoro later discovered that S-Hawk had the Dice fruit as well, or at least a recreation of it, and on top of that had the same properties as King. This Pessimista was a combination of 3 of Zoro's previous opponents, and alongside fighting Kaku only minutes earlier, the Island of the Future was more like the Island of the Past for Zoro, allowing him to revisit his old rivals. But there wasn't much time for reflection, as he was in constant battle, and his next opponent was actually one of his captains, Rob Lucci. But Zoro said he wasn't strong enough to even be worth Luffy's time anymore, and Lucci doubted him, thinking there was no way Luffy's vice captain could stand up to him, but he was wrong. And with a little extra motivation from Sanji saying Zoro was taking his sweet time with Lucci, Zoro went in for the finishing blow and defeated him. But Zoro's battles weren't done. The 5 elders landed on the island, and while the Straw Hats were trying to make their escape, one of them, Venus Juro, went to attack the crew, and Zoro defended them, clashing evenly with the ancient swordsman. He noticed the elder used a Kitetsu blade, the same kind of sword as the one he got in Logtown, but the energy both of them put into their clash caused them to fly backwards, and Zoro was luckily caught by Jinbei, and they again went to make their escape, but we don't know if they did, as that's all we have at the time of this video. Overall, Zoro is the perfect swordsman. No, he hasn't reached the peak of the One Piece world strength yet, but his honor, resilience, and loyalty are all outstanding. His word and promises mean everything to him, and he would literally rather die than break them. Whether making a promise to a childhood friend, or even joining a pirate crew, starting a life he never wanted to live, he won't complain. He won't give up when things get too hard. He can be shown how impossible his promise to Kuina was when facing Mihawk, but he picked himself up and wasn't discouraged at all. He could have left the Straw Hats when the crew was in a time of peril with Usopp and Robin leaving. He never wanted to be a pirate after all, but no, he stayed and supported his captain, giving him advice and making him a better captain and man because of it. A flawless example of what a vice captain should be. Zoro has his flaws, of course.
My bad, I didn't. Because, like, I got caught up with my Apple trap phone. So I'm back to this Android. So, like, if you want to, like, hit me up on here, like, Snapchat. And plus, like, this Android was bugging too. Like, I swear to God, like, this shit kept going on and on. And I was charging it the whole day, and this shit, like, wouldn't turn on. You know, this shit wouldn't turn on. They did that shit on the ground. But yeah, like, I ain't ignoring it. Because, like, I fucking love it, bro. You're my queen.
Yeah. Born to boil. Born to boil.
This story starts in the Flower Capital. Odin was born in Adventure, being the son and heir of the Shogun of Wano, Kozuki Sukiyaki. Wano was a very powerful country, but it was closed off from the rest of the world due to its geography. And as a result, was also closed off to foreign affairs and things from the outside world. So, Odin's destiny was to grow up
YouTube,
and
what's
eventually
going on?
as the previous line of Shoguns who got
What's going
if things went
on?
that way, we wouldn't have heard this story. To quickly sum up Odin's childhood, before the age of 1, he was strong enough to throw his nurse to the ground. At age 2, he was fast enough to catch 2 rabbits at once. At age 4, he killed a bear by throwing a boulder at it. At age 6, he was regularly visiting the pleasure halls. At age 8, he was addicted to gambling and getting drunk and brawling with the other gamblers. At age 9, he was blacklisted for entering the gambling den by the Yakuza, and in revenge set fire to the den and waged war on them. To sum it up, by the age of 10, Odin had already lived a life beyond the wildest dreams of any samurai, but he wasn't done yet. For all his crimes and antics, he was imprisoned in a quarry, and there he turned over a new leaf, becoming a chief stonemason. So, there to see the people suffer, so curved the entire river to flow into the capital. They didn't realize that it would result in a gigantic flood, and once again led to the so he took the chance to ride the river out of the country to escape. So he
Have a good night, Steve.
shelter. And with the capital back then, they were free to leave whenever they wanted, but chose to stay. So their husbands were killed, as well as their fathers and brothers, and all of them came to battle with them. And this conflict became known as the Harem War. He spent the next few years trying to set out to sea, a total of 38 times, but all of his attempts ended in total failure until he turned 18. And at this point, his father, Shogun, had enough of his son and chose to disown him. Before he was served the papers, Odin was having a meal. He was cooking Odin, a stew consisting of various ingredients, but he was doing it over the cremation fires of a man, right over his bones. He cooked and ate the entire stew while the grieving family was But after he was done, he spoke to the dead man, Katsuzo, saying his goodbyes, and that the next drink they would share would be in the afterlife. He then asked the family to pardon his intrusion, and left without another word, which inspired them, especially the women. While he was walking through the streets, the city was in chaos. There was a huge fire, but it was being caused by something way bigger, the Mountain God, a legendary beast that was rampaging through the capital because a young man named Kinemon had stolen the boar's child. Odin overheard this and told Kinemon to kill the piglet. He tried to resist, saying he was planning to sell it, but the giant boar continued to rampage through the city, swallowing the entire buildings along with the people inside them. And Kinemon learned that someone he loved had been swallowed as well, so he rushed for the boar and stabbed it. Odin admired his bravery, but Kinemon was hopeless against the beast. So Odin picked up the piglet and showed it to the boar, getting it to charge towards it. Everyone saw this and assumed Odin had stolen the piglet and caused all this to happen. Odin didn't care. He got his two swords.
I'll be back, bro.
All right.
Shit.
He saved everyone who was swallowed by the boar. So even though it destroyed a quarter of the capital, thanks to him, there were no casualties. Kinemon then tried to confess that he was guilty for the boar's attack, but Odin smacked him before he could say anything, allowing everyone to blame him for everything. To Odin, he had a horrible reputation anyway, and he didn't care about that. So why not having their reputation ruined if he had the chance? He was then told that he was disowned, which also managed to the capital. But his response.
Yes, bro. I actually could have been but I can be by myself, smoking, like what I do, what I have to do. But I recently got caught up, like skipping and shit, so like I was gonna put my shit together. I was skipping because I was smoking, rolling up with my friend, we had it, and Khalil, and Camilla, and Dre, these nuts making this too. Okay. But yeah, I see some video of that shit. I wanna recreate that video with you. Not nobody else. With you. Just like watch you eat. That should be me.
What's going on, y'all? Where y'all from? Talk to a young buck.
Yasui lectured him for not living up to his potential as the future shogun, but Odin responded that he was the son and that Yasui should be the next shogun, but he got smacked. Yasui told him that he bear the Kozuki clan crest, and that Sukiyaki only disowned him as an act of tough love, and he should take the hint to change his ways. Odin said that was all well and good. He dreamed of going out to sea, but the country didn't allow it. Wano was too cramped for him. He wanted to be free to go and do whatever he wanted, but Yasui hit him again and scolded him for being selfish. But Odin was too stubborn and didn't change his mind. After some time, Odin told Yasui he was good looking.
Straight out the main gate, no lobby, huh? That's a brand new person. You met that person?
Yeah, new.
Hmm?
He is not new.
Who's that?
He used to work with us at fucking English.
And head for Kunin, he'd heard that there was an incredibly strong man there named Ashura Doji who wanted to challenge it. But Yasui warned him that Kunin was the cancer of Wano, a lawless area where the government had given up on entirely as a lost cause, to the point that if any criminal fled there, the authorities were powerless to get them back. Yasui said that it was so lawless that it might as well be another country. But all these things didn't scare him in turn.
Yeah, I'm trying to make my way there because like when you said like it was done, so like I was like, oh damn, like I was actually planning like to go with you and stay with you, like I really want to, but like you know, be overthinking it because like you know, anything could happen. Like, I mean, like I would, like I want to so bad, but like my overthinking thoughts be getting in the way, and like I mean, yeah, you do. I guess you did me, but you like don't even talk to me, but it's all good. And what you mean? Like you wanted me to be happy out here, you was trying to get laid and me like pregnant, like I don't like that. What you mean? You're fine the way you were. Like I like it when you was with me. Like when you was texting me and talking to me, like there's nothing wrong with that. I'm more happy with you.
In fact, the opposite. It excited him. So he left Hakone and made his way towards Kunin. Along the way, he asked how long Kinemon and Dendro would follow him, and they said as far as he would go, and that they loved him. He didn't like that, but nonetheless didn't stop them. They were heavily devoted to him, even feeling it was their duty to stand in the rain to protect him, but he called them idiots and told them to get inside. They asked what he was doing, and he said he was keeping a journal. He heard that voyagers overseas wrote in them every day during their travels, so he wanted to do the same. So he logged all the events of his journey throughout Wano. They passed through Ringo, where they met two brothers, Kiku and Izo. They tried to make money dancing on the streets, but everyone rejected them. They were from a family of dancers, but their father got arrested, leaving them alone to fend for themselves. While they told their story, they just started eating Odin's Odin while crying, which annoyed him. But he didn't stop them, and when they left, the brothers followed along. They then went through Kibi and found a freak named Kanjuro, and after Odin beat him up, he started following them as well. Then, deep in the forest of Udon, they encountered a ninja named Raizo, who had been in hiding after leaving the Kozuki clan after a kunoichi turned him down. He was sick of being on the run, so started following him as well. Finally, they made it just outside of Kuri, and Odin told everyone that he'd be going south to fertilize nature, whatever that meant, and his followers didn't question it. But when he didn't return for over a day, they realized that Kuri was south of there, and that he'd entered it without them. They all started panicking and ran to Kuri, guilty that they weren't there to protect him when he was in the most dangerous part of the country. Inside, the criminals were expecting Odin. The rules were that anyone could enter Kuri, but if they tried to leave, they'd be killed. But Odin disagreed, saying this lifestyle was cramped, there wasn't any way for people to live, and that being not allowed to leave was his least favorite rule. Then jumped headfirst into a whole army of samurai, and after a whole day of fighting, he defeated every single one of them, including the infamous Ashura Doji. His followers finally arrived when the battle was done, finding Odin sitting on Ashura Doji. He told Odin to kill him, saying he had nothing to live for. So Odin asked his followers if they still loved him, and if they did, he asked them to lend him their wisdom and strength, since he decided that these worthless hooligans needed him as their king. And so he rounded all the criminals and misfits of Korea up, and started transforming the wasteland into a full-blown city. This impressed the entire country, even Odin's father, who retracted his dishonor and named Odin the daimyo of Kuri, considering it an official region of Wano. This was a monumental achievement that only Odin would be crazy enough to attempt, and one that only he could succeed in. Odin changed the lives of everyone in Kuri, especially Ashwin Doji, who thanked Odin, saying that this was the first time he'd ever experienced peace. But Odin wasn't one for compliments or gratitude. He then got serious. As daimyo, he needed vassals, but he didn't want to be assigned some stuck-up nobles, and even though he didn't ask or want them to follow him in the first place, he wanted them to be his samurai. They all burst out in tears and started hugging him, but he threw them off, getting annoyed, but he didn't regret his decision. Years passed, with Odin as Kuri's daimyo, and his followers now being his official vassals. One day, while Odin was out fishing, he saw that his citizens had strung up a cat, dog, and kappa on posts and were hitting them with sticks. Odin was angered, beating them all up, and started scolding them. Their fear of the unknown exposed their ignorance, and had caused them to torment little children. Satisfied with the lesson he taught, Odin started walking away. The three of them yelled that he didn't get them down from the posts, so he reluctantly did, and they followed him back to his castle. They started eating his Odin, and thanked him for saving them. The cat and dog were called Minks, a tribe of talking animals who had a long-time alliance with the Kosuke family, and the kappa was actually a fishman who washed up on Wano. Odin was intrigued by all these different species, and thought that there would be even more unique things out there in the vast world, and he couldn't wait to see them. Odin told the three of them to be safe, but they all jumped on him and begged him to let them stay. And so, he had no choice once again, and gained 3 new vassals. But they had a problem. They were running out of money, and a big reason for that was Odin kept lending Orochi their money. He was one of Yasuo's men, so Odin felt he couldn't abandon him. Odin, despite what he said and how he acted, was incredibly kind and gracious. He couldn't turn a blind eye to suffering. Even if he didn't have the best methods of dealing with it, like when he accidentally flooded the capital, he still had to do something. But now, his city of Kuri was suffering for it. But his vassals didn't blame him, and instead took matters into their own hands. They snuck into Akamai and attempted to steal money from Yasue, but he caught them. He asked why they stole, and they told him it was for Odin, and if he wanted to kill them, to get it over with. But he said they could keep the money, and even gave them extra. They were shocked and asked if it was a trap, but he just told them that if they loved Odin, to use the money to clean themselves up, practice manners, buy books, learn things. If he had ruffians for vassals, he would embarrass himself. One day, he would be the shogun of Wano. Those that served and supported him had to be the greatest samurai in the land. They didn't just have to protect Odin, but the capital as well. And the 9 of them would eventually become the country of Wano's guardian deities. 3 years later, they were set to bring a procession to the capital, and everyone called Odin's vassals thugs, even thinking they would steal from the capital, but it was the opposite. They brought a procession not just worthy of a daimyo, but of a shogun. And it was said that the weight of their arrival upon the gathering crowd was so great that it caused the capital itself to sink, just a little bit. Odin met with his father, who was shocked to his core at the change to Odin. He replied that he hadn't changed at all, and had only been made great by his vassals. He heard that his father was ill, but he was relieved to see him invigorated. However, that would be the last time they saw each other. Later, they returned to Kuri, and there, Odin heard the news that a pirate crew washed up on the shore, and he was brimming with excitement. He rushed to meet them, and the first thing he did was test the strength of their captain.
Sonic, you finally found your family.
Try to keep up.
I know it hasn't always been easy, but you didn't change who you are in here.
Yeah. In my lungs.
Or your heart.
There's been a high-level security breach. And we need Team Sonic's immediate assistance. Project Shadow is far beyond anything we've ever encountered. Shadow's story began a lot like yours, Sonic. You found a family and friends. Shadow found only pain, loss.
Alright, we got a rogue alien on the loose. How do we find it? Start with a giant fireball? I love it. Let's start with a giant fireball.
He's much more impressive than the hedgehog I fought previously.
Dude, I'm standing right here.
You're a colorful bunch.
We don't want to fight you.
Actually, Sonic, I would like to This is sad, Robotnik.
Then, impressed by his power, asked to join his crew. After things settled down, they got to talking. The pirate's name was Edward Yuki, the legendary pirate Whitebeard, though no one in Wano knew it as they couldn't get outside information. Odin said he wanted to go out to sea and have an adventure.
YouTube, what's going on? YouTube, what's going on?
All right, bud. All right, bud.
I appreciate it, bro. Have a good one.
All right, you too.
Yo, yo, yo.
All right, bro. You too, man.
Oh, man, let me start this car. How late you'll be here? When are you leaving? What time? It's so... See that sucker? I just started from the phone, so I can get it's not as hot.
That car?
Yeah.
But what happened to that?
It's on my out for my car. That's what I was just starting. Say it was started. You said the air condition because you know how much fuel got in there. Say the range. I'm saying you could of course put a light on. They even have a camera that gives you a 360 degree view around your car, everything else. Yeah. Don't you can't do this. Move it.
He didn't care.
But go be awesome, right?
Whitebeard said he wasn't the type of person that could serve someone else, and that if he wanted to travel,
What's going
he
on,
had to
y'all?
get his own ship.
COLEY.
But Odin said that he tried dozens of times, but had no skill for sailing. His vassals then made an agreement with Whitebeard to not let Odin on his crew. But Odin was annoyed. He just wanted to have his adventure and see the world, and that night he intended to. He snuck out of the castle and lashed onto Whitebeard's ship with a chain. Izo rushed after him, knowing this would happen, and grabbed onto him. They started getting dragged through the ocean by Whitebeard's ship, and Odin enthusiastically yelled at Whitebeard to show him the world. So Whitebeard gave him a challenge. If he could hold on to the chain for 3 days, he would let him on his ship, and Odin gleefully accepted. And so, through thunderous rain, sea monster-infested waters, and even mountains, Odin held on with an iron grip, until finally, there was only 1 hour left. And by this point, after seeing his dedication, the entire Whitebeard crew started cheering him on, because soon, he would be one of them. But he let go. He'd heard a woman being attacked by slavers, so, as per usual, he couldn't bear to stand by while someone was in need, and went to save her. By this point, the Grand Line Oceaner left his body ruined with infection and injury, leaving him looking more like a sea creature than human, and this appearance made the slavers run away in fear. And after that, Odin couldn't bear to stay conscious, and passed out. He woke up a day later, having healed up completely with his freakish genetics. He said it was too bad he couldn't get onto Whitebeard's ship, but even still, he was on foreign land for the first time, so he was optimistic. The woman he saved and nursed him back to health was named Toki, and Odin thanked her, but was disappointed to see that she was wearing traditional Wano clothing, thinking people would dress differently overseas. But she said that actually her dream was to go to Wano, and asked him to take her there, but he didn't hide his disdain at that idea. But at that moment, Whitebeard returned and told Odin to get on his ship. Odin was confused. He failed the challenge, but Whitebeard just told him they were going on a grand adventure beyond anything he could ever imagine, and called him his little brother. When he got back on the ship, he discovered that Dogstorm and Cat Viper had stowed away, so it couldn't be helped. Those two, along with Izo, would accompany him on his voyage. Whitebeard also allowed Toki to come along, and so his adventure finally began. He saw a vast and wondrous world beyond anything from his wildest dreams. He experienced weather that he never thought was possible, plants and animals that were unthinkable, people, strength, ideas. Everything was new and different to him. Everything surpassed his imagination. Odin learned how the world worked, about the four blues and Grand Line. Wano was so small compared to all of it, and this excited him. During their travels, Odin got to know Toki. She told him that Wano was her parents' homeland, and that was why she wanted to go there. But he said that Whitebeard's ship wouldn't go back there for a long time, so she was unlucky. But she responded that just being around him made her feel like she reached her destination. Odin was clueless as to what she meant, and she remained coy with him. But regardless, whether he knew it or not, their relationship was booming. And during the second year of their travels, they had a son. Odin said that his name had to tell the world he was invincible, so he named him Kozuki Momonosuke. Around this time, Whitebeard named Odin his 2nd Division commander, which he tried to turn down, but was forced into it. As they continued to travel, Odin just wanted to see more and more, and wasn't satisfied. He was searching for an answer, but didn't know what it was. But back in Wano, a storm was brewing. Orochi, the man that Odin pitied and helped so many times, was plotting to take over the entire country. He had the help of someone that ate a devil fruit that allowed them to transform into anyone, and they used his power to turn to Odin himself and his father, and made everyone believe that Orochi was close to Odin, like a brother, and that the Shogun wanted him to be next in line for the throne. But since no information could leave Wano, Odin had no idea what was going on. 4 years into Odin's journey, he and Toki had a daughter named Hiyori, and at this time, they landed on an island that appeared to be no different from any other on the Grand Line. But what made it special was who was on it. Goldie Roger, Whitebeard's greatest rival. But Odin didn't care. He ran straight at it, like he would any other enemy pirate. He easily defeated the weaker members of Roger's crew. So, he was met by Roger himself.
Yo, samurai! Come, sorry!
Odin couldn't believe his strength. He hadn't felt something like that since he clashed with Whitebeard 4 years before, but he got back up and started running back. But before he could, Whitebeard leapt at Roger, and they clashed.
It's called a bicycle, but will anybody ride it?
The automobile is here, but horses are here to...
They shocked Odin to his core. They were both so powerful, they didn't even touch blades when they clashed. But before he could think more about it, the two captains declared that the crews would go into battle. And so, all of them fought for the next 3 days and nights. But eventually, things cooled down, and they got to talking like they were old friends. Roger brought out a text in the language of the poneglyphs, and Odin said he could read it. The knowledge to do so had been passed down through the Kozuki family for 800 years. Roger revealed that him and his crew followed the log post all the way to Lodestar, where no one had reached before. They thought it was the final island, but it wasn't. There was one more, and in order to get there, they had to find 4 red poneglyphs, known as road poneglyphs, which, when combined together, would reveal the location of that final island. The stories say that a vast treasure awaits whoever arrives at that final island, and if they got there, they would be the world's greatest pirate crew. Then Roger said something that made Odin freeze. For the second time that day, he was stunned. But But then, Roger asked Whitebeard to let him take Odin for a year, and he was sure that with him he could reach the final island. He bowed down, begging for this, and Odin tried to stop him, asking him not to embarrass himself. But Whitebeard was livid, saying he was trying to steal his family from him, and started destroying the island in rage. But Odin was thinking. His ancestry called out to him. It asked why the Koski family could read these letters. Why did he meet Roger at this time? And before he knew it, the words left his mouth. He asked Whitebeard to let him go with Roger. Whitebeard was opposed, not wanting to lose Odin, who had been his little brother for 4 years, but Odin begged him, saying it was only 1 year. So, Whitebeard relented. Odin's 3 vassals who had been traveling with him said they would stay on Whitebeard's ship and wait for him to return, and he said that was their right, and everyone should be free to choose. Whitebeard was still annoyed that Odin chose to leave, but he accepted it, and the rest of the crew gave him a send-off. So, after 4 years, maybe now, Odin would find the answer he was searching for. It was the second act of his life as a pirate, a brand new adventure. He thought to himself that he was so lucky to meet 2 men as great as Whitebeard and Roger, and get to travel with both of them. At first, the crew was hostile, saying their captain only needed him for his knowledge, and not to assume they'd accept him as one of their own. But Odin didn't really care, and just did his own thing. They landed on a port town where Odin stole a bunch of ingredients, and when they got back on board the ship, he made a signature Odin, and that was what won over the entire crew to him. They all started cheering Odin, and he said that was him. He was Odin, and he was born to boil. Odin was then told that Roger only had a year left to live, and that was why he was so desperate to finish his journey. The Roger pirates went on adventures beyond even what Odin experienced on the Whitebeard pirates. They were blasted into the sky by a giant pillar of water, and there they found an entire new ocean and islands all in the sky. The world was bigger and grander than Odin ever could have pictured. While they were on the sky island, they found a massive golden bell, and next to it there was a poneglyph, but it wasn't a red one like they needed. So Roger told Odin to carve a message for him into the bell, and Odin thought to himself that he wanted Roger to show it to him, the final chapter of his grand life-spanning adventure. They then descended back into the blue sea, and further down to go beyond the depths into Fishman Island. During the descent, Roger heard a voice, and Odin heard it too, but no one else could. They made it to Fishman Island and found one of the road poneglyphs. They went back up to the surface and headed for Wano, but during the trip, Toki fell sick, so she had no choice but to end her journey there and disembark on Wano. Odin said he'd go with her, but Toki refused, saying if he was the type of man to give up on his dreams now, she'd get a divorce. He had to follow through and complete this journey of a lifetime. They landed, and Odin's vassals were glad to see him and tried to tell him what was going on in Wano, but Toki stopped them, saying if they cared about Odin, to let him leave. As he turned his back on Wano, he knew there was something terrible brewing, but he could sense that if he found out what it was, he would never go out to sea again. This goes back to his nature of never turning his back on someone in need and having to step in no matter what, so he couldn't find out what was going on until his journey was complete. He took a copy of the road poneglyph that was on Wano and got back on Roger's ship, and now it was time for the final poneglyph, which was located in the country that sat on top of a giant elephant, Zo. When they approached it, Odin got a strange feeling, but he didn't know what it was, and Roger felt it too. It felt like something huge was watching them, but nonetheless, they found it, the final road poneglyph. They deciphered all of them and pinpointed the final island's location, and Roger ordered them to set sail immediately. And on that day, they learned the entire truth of the world, what the 100-year void was, what the people of the D were, what the ancient weapons were. In the past, Wano was open to the world, and in the face of the vast treasure on that final island, which was very real indeed, Roger just laughed, and so did the rest of them. They laughed until tears sprang to their eyes. Joy Boy had left behind a tale full of laughs. And so, Roger decided to name this island that hadn't been reached in 800 years, Laugh Tale.
Yum! What is that? Get the Google app for iPhone and tap the lens icon to find out. Choose the screenshot, and now you know exactly what to ask for at the bakery. Search what you see. Download the Google app.
Odin had found it, all the answers to his questions. He went from knowing nothing about the world outside of Wano to discovering the secrets of the entire world that only him and a handful of people knew about. He had found and accomplished more than what should have been possible. So, there was nothing else to do. And the same went for the rest of the crew. So, Roger disbanded the Roger Pirates. Roger got off the ship and waved goodbye, but this was a man's farewell. They were utterly stoic. Not a single tear was shed. for the crew of the King of the Pirates would never cry. Their next stop was Wano to drop Odin off, and during the voyage, he said that before there was a purpose to Wano being closed off from the rest of the world, but now they had to open his ports before Joy Boy returned. We don't know what he learned on Laugh-Tale or what his reasons were, but this was now Odin's number one wish, to open Wano. They arrived and Odin got off the ship, saying goodbye to the Roger Pirates, saying they would one day meet again. Toki jumped into his arms along with his children. He was finally back, satisfied, having seen everything the world had to offer. But now it was time to hear about the situation he neglected earlier. Odin's father passed away, and Orochi had taken the position of shogun, having successfully tricked everyone into believing he was close to Odin, and that the previous shogun wanted him to take over. Orochi built factories, where he forced the people of Wano to work and build weapons for him, and the reason everyone had no choice but to obey him was that he had gotten the support of the pirate Kaido. But after a while, the people of Wano were sick of this, and one man refused to work, but in response, his family was executed, and this was the last straw for Odin's vassals. They marched to the flower capital to overthrow Orochi, but while they were gone, Kaido's followers snuck into Kuri, infiltrated the castle, and threatened the life of Momonosuke. Kawamatsu and Dogstorm were able to drive them away, but in the chaos, Toki was hit by an arrow while protecting Momonosuke. Odin's vassals hung their heads after telling him this, apologizing for putting his family in danger, but Odin didn't blame them. He asked Toki to show him the wound, and he saw a massive scar. He embraced her for protecting Momonosuke, but she could see him boiling with rage. She said he couldn't get angry over something trivial like this, but he responded that she didn't know the stories of his past, and then told his men to stay there and protect his family, while he grabbed his swords and leapt out of the castle. He was enraged, not only at what Orochi did to his family, but what he was doing to all of Wano. And this was why he knew he couldn't hear about this before his voyage was done, because he wouldn't be able to control what he did next. He rampaged through the Shogun's palace, defeating every soldier in his way in devastating fashion, until he reached Orochi. He rushed forward, and Orochi pleaded for him to think about what would happen if he killed him. But Odin said that he'd think about it after he sliced him in two, but he was blocked by Devil Fruit. The barrier fruit prevented any attack from getting through it, no matter how powerful, so Odin couldn't do anything to Orochi. Kaido then arrived, and Orochi revealed they had a gift for him, a stock of weapons, and hundreds of people that he kidnapped to be sold, tortured, or killed. Odin was furious and clashed with Kaido, but Orochi made a suggestion. He said he could stop the kidnappings. If he went to the center of town and danced like a fool every week, he would save 100 lives with each dance. And after 5 years, Orochi and Kaido promised that they would sail away from Wano once they built ships for their crews to leave with, and he accepted. The people watched in disbelief as the man they thought would be their savior danced like a fool right on cue every single week, and their disappointment soon turned to anger. Odin's vassals begged him to tell them what was going on. They said that everyone, even his most loyal followers, lost hope in him. All of his citizens, even in his beloved city of Kuri that he built, shunned him. After a year of this, he got the news that Roger was executed, and he laughed, with tears in his eyes, celebrating Roger's incredible life, as he would have wanted. Odin continued to dance, but in between he spent time with his family, vassals, and friends constantly. And finally, the 5 years were up, with everything having been at a standstill for that time. And with that, Orochi came to Kuri, with Odin expecting him to announce his departure, but instead, he denied the deal they made, and doubled down, imprisoning Odin's dear friend Hyogoro. But during the struggle, Kaido's men killed Hyogoro's wife. This was the last straw. Kaido and Orochi lied about their deal and were starting to clamp down on the people of Wano. So, Odin told his vassals that the time had come for them to strike down Kaido. He sacrificed his dignity and reputation for 5 years of peace. Odin saved 100 lives every week for 5 years, totaling 26,000 lives saved. Even though none of the people he saved knew it, Odin danced and danced, not caring what anyone thought, just knowing he was doing the right thing, and that was all that mattered. Orochi and Kaido were still wary of his strength, so they didn't dare torment the people of Wano like they did before during those 5 years, but now they were, so Odin knew there was no option for peace. His 9 vassals stood by him, under the crimson red sun. It shone like flames on their backs. Because of this, everyone watching would later call them the 9 Red Scabbards, the protectors of Wano that Yasuo had predicted they would become. And, alongside their leader, they went into battle. Odin didn't change his mind on not causing massive casualties, so he only brought his vassals. But unexpectedly, Kaido anticipated them and brought an entire army to meet them. Kaido mocked him for choosing the option that would save lives and not hurt anyone, saying that was what Roger and Whitebeard would have done. But Odin said he didn't regret it. During those 5 years, his people had peace, and he did too. He spent that time with his family and friends, building memories and moments that could be cherished. But now, it was time to look to the future. They ran into battle, and a ninja named Shinobu joined them. So, it was 11 samurai against 1,000 pirates, but the battle lasted longer than expected, as Odin's strength surpassed the enemy's expectation. Odin fought through hundreds until he finally made it to Kaido, and with one beautiful technique, sliced his chest. Kaido collapsed, and Odin was about to strike the finishing blow, but just then, he heard Momonosuke's voice call out to him. He turned and saw his son with a knife to his neck, and his mind was scrambled, his defenses completely down, and Kaido delivered a lethal blow while Odin's back was turned. He was knocked down, bleeding from the head, and it was revealed that he hadn't seen Momonosuke, but the Delphi user that Orochi worked with to take over the country. Odin's vassals tried to save him, but the enemy took the chance to stab them in their backs as well. Odin and his 9 vassals lost the battle and were imprisoned, but the citizens just looked on in disdain, not knowing what they'd done for them in the battle, and indeed for the past 5 years as well. But soon after, their fate was announced. In 3 days' time, the 10 samurai would be sentenced to death by boiling.
Keep all your passwords safe.
Odin stepped onto the execution platform. Kaido and Orochi laughed while the people criticized him for being a fool and weak. He was on the edge of the pot when he made a request. All 10 of them would enter the pot together, and if any of them withstood the boiling for the amount of time Kaido chose, they would be free to leave. Kaido laughed and said an hour. Boiling, especially in oil, was an instant death sentence, lasting a few seconds at most, so Kaido decided to mock Odin and make a fool out of him by giving an impossible amount of time. Everyone watching agreed and called him pathetic and to just get his death over with. So, Odin jumped into the boiling hot oil and screamed out in excruciating pain. His vassals were about to jump in to join him, but Odin got a plank and ordered them to get on top of it. He held them all over his head, with him alone boiling in the pot of oil. They were all horrified, saying it should have been the other way around. They swore to protect him and give their lives to do so, but Odin ordered them to stay on top of the plank. The surrounding crowd was shocked, saying it took immense strength just to hold his vassals up, but to do it while being boiled at the same time was ludicrous. Shinobu was crying while she saw him struggle and suffer. The clock ticked by, one agonizing second at a time, but Odin grit his teeth, refusing to yield. His vassals begged him to put them down, but he kept going. The oil bubbled and burned. His vassals lifted above him felt as if the heat was going to roast them, so they could only imagine the horror their lord was experiencing. Blood started to pour out of Odin's entire body. 4 minutes passed. The crowd said they were getting bored, that he wasn't screaming and dying quickly like they thought, so said they couldn't waste any more time on this fool of a lord. But this made Shinobu snap. She slammed the man who said that to the ground and threatened to kill him. She screamed out that they were the fools and revealed everything. Odin sacrificed his dignity and reputation so they could live in peace. That after his death, they would realize just how much misery he kept at bay. For all those years, Odin was protecting Wano. The people were in disbelief. It was too much for them to process. They begged Orochi to call off the execution, but he shot them. Only then did they realize the storm that was coming if Odin died. The man boiling in front of them was the final shining hope of Wano. The news spread throughout the whole crowd and through the entire country. They realized their devastating, shameful mistake. So, the people that had forsaken him for the past 5 years started cheering for him. The pot surpassed 700 degrees and continued to rise, but they begged him to live. They apologized and thanked him, and he thanked them back. He didn't expect anything from them. He didn't care about their ridicule. It was nothing to him. But he appreciated their support, even if it was only at the final stretch. He said that if he survived the boiling, his wish was to open the country. He said that long ago, the Kozuki clan closed the country to protect it. But now, Wano and the entire world awaited a certain figure, and when that figure appeared, the country must be prepared to welcome them. He then admitted that he would be killed that day, but he wanted them to open up Wano in his stead, and his vassals said that his dream was their dream, and he was glad to hear it. 30 minutes remained. The oil was so hot that the heat even became lethal for Odin's vassals being held above, but Odin refused to die. The time dwindled down. 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 minute, 10 seconds, 3 seconds, 1 second, and the crowd rejoiced. He survived the execution. But yet again, Kaido and Orochi lied. Their men pointed guns at Odin and his vassals, but Odin knew this would happen. He told his vassals to do it for him, open Wano's borders. Then he threw them all to safety, and they ran full speed towards Kuri, not being able to turn back, all in tears, remembering all the years they spent at Odin's side. Kaido said he would kill him, and that the age of Kozuki was over, but Odin said not to underestimate his samurai. Kaido said they would speak of his spectacular death for years to come, but Odin didn't care. Even if they forgot him, his soul would live on. And finally, he said that he was Odin, and he was born to boil. Odin was right. His soul lived on. His very presence emanated from all corners of Wano. His vassals, son, daughter, and every other
Alright,
person
y'all.
living in Wano
Like,
cherished his
comment,
memory,
subscribe.
as well as some he would have never expected.